Second page. Yep.
Oh, okay.
Second page
Second
where it
page.
belongs.
Very good.
Oh, man.
We'll promote you to the first page, Martin. I don't know how to do that, but
I'm okay with second page.
oh, I see you
Good.
now.
You can go to 1B.
Okay.
Okay, Mayor, we are live on YouTube.
Very good. Very good. And I've got 6:30 p.m. and welcome everybody to the Federal Way City Council meeting. It is 6:30 p.m. and time to get down to business here. Welcome, and hope everybody had a safe and happy 4th of July. So now that the meeting is called to order, would you all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag
To the flag
of the United States
the
of
United
America
States of America.
and to the republic
And to the republic
And to the
for
republic,
which it stands,
stands
For which it
one
stands.
nation,
one nation,
under
one
God,
nation,
under God,
Under God.
indivisible,
indivisible,
liberty
principle.
with
Indivisible.
liberty and
with
justice for
liberty
all.
and
Just for all.
justice for all.
for all.
It's like a sing-along.
You gotta practice that one.
Exactly.
As long as we
good
don't do it in
though.
the same room.
Exactly.
Ball.
That's right.
Hmm.
Hey, I was actually watching our last council meeting where just a portion of the 6 hours the other day, and it was fun to see us on TV. I was just flipping channels at trying to relax the other day, and I turned on to channel 21, and it was really fun just to kind of see us all on the screen there and taking care of our business. I forget exactly where we were in the meeting, but I think we're really getting the hang of this. So with that, I had mentioned the 4th of July. We all know that we had I hope you all had a happy and safe 4th of July. Prior to that holiday at the last meeting, we had Deputy Chief Kyle Sumter give a report outlining efforts that would be made at the 4th. And so this is the follow-up safety report by Deputy Chief Kyle Sumter. Chief, you're on.
Hello. I hope you can all see me. And I think Thomas and I have this worked out so we don't have the same problems that we had 2 weeks ago. There.
There it is.
Okay, you got it? That's good. Oh, no.
What's that say?
That was a surprise.
Just press the button. Start my video.
I've pushed it several times.
It says your cursor is right there. So
I'm touching it, and there we go.
there we go.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, up and running. First of all, I want to put Federal Way into context. Thomas, you are not going to believe it, but it is not advancing again.
Give it a click, a couple extra clicks on the actual PowerPoint itself. Nothing.
Okay, that did it.
Okay.
All right, let's just watch this short video. I probably should have skipped it given the grief we've already had. Watch this short video. This is another city where all fireworks are illegal. And if you look closely, these are not small fireworks. This is all aerial stuff in the city of Los Angeles. And these are the ones that you can see high above the ground. You can multiply what you're seeing by about 10 times for what's going on the ground down below. And this news reporter is talking about how LAPD is scrambling all around the city trying to respond the best they can. That's a little bit of context. On Saturday night, July 4th, the city of Tacoma has a very similar ban, an all-out ban of all fireworks all the time. And theirs went into effect in the early 90s, very similar to ours. And so at about 9:30 p.m., 9:30 to 10, I wandered over to Tacoma to have a look there. And they had widespread violations, just like we did that night. In the United States and regionally, there were reportedly record sales of fireworks everywhere. And so we knew it was going to be a big year. You may recall that I invited the community to email me in advance addresses for their chronic violating neighbors. And on July 2nd, I received 6 of those. And that was exactly a half a dozen more than I received last year. On July 2nd, Officer Friendlies went to those neighborhoods and visited and educated and asked for voluntary compliance. And I have at least one report from one of those 6 saying it helped. Their neighborhood was quieter than in years past. We also have some evidence that there are at least a couple of multifamily housing properties that have adopted rules and penalties for violations on their properties, so that's a good start. As far as South King Fire and Rescue goes, you may recall that last year at this same time, these are preliminary numbers subject to change, there were 14 fires in this same period, whereas this year there were 7. One of them was a house, and no reported injuries. That's very unusual, but good for us this year. From the police department, total calls for service during a 6-day period surrounding the 4th of July, we had 1,361. 270 of those were for fireworks, and you can see how those numbers compare to the previous 2 years. On July 4th, these are the breakdowns. Total calls for service this year, 315, a little less than usual, and ballpark for the number of fireworks related calls we got on the 4th of July. Now, this might be interesting to some of you. You can see this is the total fireworks calls for service from last year. You can see the hot spot there at 300 Southwest 304th Street, and a hot spot up north, another one southwest. And here is this year's. Very similar. You see 3 red spots there. And we used this one from last year to deploy our enforcement teams this year. And we will use this one from this year to deploy next year's fireworks enforcement teams. And in terms of enforcement, here it is in the last 3 years. This year, our preliminary count is 20. That's about the same as it's been the last couple of years. These are for the $300 infractions. And then going into next year, we have the same requests, and I will add another one. Going into next year, we're still calling upon homeowners associations and multifamily housing properties to adopt bylaws and rules and covenants that prohibit illegal activity on their property and impose penalties for fireworks violations. They're illegal. Here's a new one. We can see that if this is perceived as a police initiative, and if enforcement is the only tool we are using to stop fireworks, it's just not going to be enough, and it never will be enough. We're inviting service clubs and organizations to join in. Here's something you can do. If you want to make a difference in Federal Way, would you please establish a fireworks awareness and prevention campaign? Here's one idea for that. I was in the city of Shoreline a couple of weeks ago, and I saw these signs posted all over. Notice the logo in the upper right corner, City of Shoreline. Yeah, we could do that too, but I would like to see other groups and organizations with their logos up there. These signs here are about $1 a piece when you order 100 of them. How about each service club going in $100, get 100 signs with their design and their logo, so people around the city can see this isn't just a government initiative. It's everybody combining to say, stop doing this. Maybe one organization can get a picture of their puppy who is frightened because of the noise on a picture on these and put them all around town. Here's a picture from the city of Tacoma. You notice that they've got the government logos down there. We could do that too, but I would sure like to see service organizations. So this is more obviously an initiative by all the people for all of the people. And then next year, again, I'd like to see a lot more of these officer-friendly neighborhood visits leading up to the 4th of July. And so I'll make the same invitation next year. Email me in advance, and I will send officers out to have a nice friendly visit and seek compliance. That's the basic rundown. Do we have any discussion?
Okay, Council, let me put this on real quick. Are there any, I see Councilmember Moore and then Council President Honda. Councilmember Moore, you have a question?
You know, Thomas or somebody, if they can pull up the numbers slide in terms of reports of fireworks. More of a comment, maybe a question. That's, you know, obviously the city of Federal Way didn't have its amazing 4th of July festivities. It's hard to believe that the numbers were roughly the same as last year's with, you know, in terms of fireworks not being done in neighborhoods and everything.
Yeah, that's unusual. It sounded like there was a lot of violations, there's no doubt. And the numbers are what they are. The numbers are, frankly, the total calls for service are a little bit lower than last year. The fireworks calls for service are about the same. It's strange.
Great. Thanks.
All right, thank you. Council President Honda.
So I would say, in my opinion, I think it was worse than last year.
Mhm.
And I think the one thing that saved us from having more fires is that the weather has been so wet and so cold.
Yeah.
Because if we had dry grass on our trails and in our yards, we probably would have had more fires, with what I was hearing and what people were telling me. But I didn't have no one needed to tell me that it was a bad year. So I hesitate to say this, but it doesn't seem to make a difference to people who want to shoot fireworks off that we have a $300 fine. I know we've talked about increasing the fine before. There are some cities that have a fine for up to $1,000 for the infraction. King County Council discussed a couple of months ago of having a ban in King County for fireworks, and the fine would have been $1,000. One of the fines would have been $1,000. And they had to stop that discussion because we were in the middle of COVID, and you couldn't have discussions that didn't have anything to do with the emergency or with COVID. But King County will come back to that. The King County Council will come back to discussing an overall ban of fireworks in King County and having a very hefty fine. So I don't know if we need to increase our fine. Maybe $300 isn't enough to convince people not to do this. Or perhaps have a field that we say, come and shoot your fireworks off here. I would hate to do that, but if they had a space where they could go, maybe they wouldn't be doing it in our parks and on our trails and in our streets. I don't know. I just know that what we're doing isn't working, but it's not working anywhere. People all over the state behave the way that they behave here in Federal Way, so we're not any different. I just am trying to find a solution, because I know we didn't get a lot of sleep this weekend. My dogs were stressed out. I know people were stressed out. Babies were stressed out. There has to be something that we can do to make this a better situation. And I'm not sure what that is, but I'm open to any ideas you might have.
Yeah. I can say that where it is legal to set off fireworks, because I also went out there from 11 to 12, it's twice as bad. So as bad as it was in Federal Way, and there's no doubt it was probably the worst year we've had in a couple of decades. And I think that was universal all across the country. It is much worse where fireworks are legal. So the efforts we are doing now is having an influence. It isn't putting an end to it, there's no question, but it is definitely having an influence. And so we just have to stay after it. Do more, sure, but not let up.
Do you think if we would have had signs, our signs that we put messages on saying fireworks are illegal, that would have made a difference? I've heard some citizens talk about that.
I think that might help. I do. That's why I'm recommending, and I would love to see service clubs adopt that signage program so that people can see this isn't just the government, again, telling you what not to do, although that is what we do, but they can see that there's a wide variety of people in the city who are saying, don't do this for a lot of different reasons. Yeah, I would like to see a sign campaign from service clubs. I think that'll help.
Okay, we'll develop a plan for next year. We're going to be, we are going through the process of analyzing, these results, and so we're already working on an after action report, and we'll have a plan in place for next year regarding public outreach and enforcement, and making sure that we approach this in a very strategic and effective way. So thank you, Council President Honda. And Councilmember Sefa Dawson, did you have a question?
No, I was going to make a comment, but I think Council President Susan said it very eloquently. They were louder, bigger, and I kept thinking maybe they were in Northeast Tacoma because I live very close to there. But they were, I mean, I couldn't sleep. So yes, I did see a huge difference between previous years and this year. But also granted that previous years we were at the fireworks here at Celebration Park, so maybe I didn't hear him as well. I don't know.
Okay.
But yeah, they were just, horrible.
Yeah. Yep.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. And I've got some ideas, and we're already shared it with the chief and deputy chief. So thank you, Cal, for your energy on this. How many? Could you explain how many officers were on duty that night?
We had the main fireworks problem occurs. Of course, it happens all day on the 4th, but the main problem is 9 p.m. to midnight. And during that time, we had 2 full patrol squads on duty, and nobody was allowed to take vacation. So it was full patrol squads, 2 overlapping squads, plus an additional 26 officers, which is another 2.5 times. So we had nearly 4 times as many police officers as are out on the road patrolling in the middle of the day.
Yeah.
By far our biggest staffing day of the year.
It's disappointing when you see, people in their homes flagrantly violating the law, and it's disappointing, and it's kind of it sends a very poor message to their neighbors and to their families. I think that they're willing to violate the law. That's so. But it is what it is. I think one of the challenges I just want to share with everybody is that it's very difficult to catch people. Well, you would think it would be very easy to roll up and catch us in action. In one instance that I'm aware of, somebody was doing this in their backyard with their gate shut, and so you can't just walk into somebody's backyard. There are Fourth Amendment protections against that, and then you have that. And then you've just got a situation in which it's just difficult to find the exact location where this is going once a call occurs. Because once 911 is called, then police go out to that area, and by the time they get out there, it's a little bit of a cat and mouse game. So, okay, well, thank you. Good work, and I appreciate your report, Kyle. And let's move on to our next item. Here we've got the status of the CARES Act distribution with our finance director, Aday. I would note that Tim Johnson, one of the hardest working men in city government, has been under the weather lately. And so we've picked up the ball, and we've got our staff working on it. I want to thank Aday and Bill and Pam in my office, my executive assistant, who's, along with Bill, have just been doing a phenomenal job getting this up and started. So with that, Aday, let's go ahead and talk about what we're looking at with regard to CARES Act distribution and what we're doing.
Thank you, Mayor, Council President Onda, and Council. I'm doing this on behalf of our team. As the Mayor said, the hardworking man, but the hardworking man fell apart, so we're trying to put him together, and it's coming through, slowly. And Bill, Tyler, Pam, they worked really hard in putting this together. And Thomas, I think a great effort on his part in setting the software up. So we actually went live on July 1st, 2020. And Thomas made sure that by midnight on July 1st, the system was available online. And as of, based on what we set up on July 1st, the deadline entry will be July 15. That is when we will complete, or at least the businesses supposed to finish entering their information for the first phase of the grant. As of this morning, I think between Bill, Tyler, and Pam, we've sent out almost 13,000 emails to the businesses to let them know that this grant is available. We've also, what we've done is look at in our database the businesses with email those are the ones that we're sending emails to. The ones that we do not see or have their email, we're mailing the letters to them. So we've mailed 583, almost 600 letters to the respective businesses as of this morning. We're in the process of hiring 2 staff, at least for the next 3 months. And actually, the mayor just did hire a temporary person to be able to help us with this, which I think it will help us speed things up so that when all the data are in on July 15th, we're able to download this information and see who is there and take it from there.
8,800.
As of this morning, we've had about close to 300 businesses have submitted their applications, and about 27 are still typing. The software allowed them to be able to enter some information, and when they get to a point where they need more time or whatever it is, they can get out and log back in at some point. So as of this morning, we have about 300 that have submitted, they've completed entering their information into the system, and we have about 27, almost 10%, about 30 that are still processing their information. So for the first few days, when the first day was July 1st, I think, this is a good thing. And we still have almost about close to 2 weeks to go. So I'm hoping within the next week and a half, we will have a lot of more. We've had a lot of phone calls, a lot of emails, people seeking clarifications, and people asking for additional questions. So that is all I have as of now. I'll be glad to answer any question.
I would want to let the council and the community know that not only are we getting out emails, but we did that first burst of emails out to all the businesses and out to the chamber and out to as wide and far as we possibly could. But then we sent hard copy letters to businesses that did not have email addresses. Now we're literally in the process. If you were in my office, actually in front of Pam's desk, we have 8,800 letters going out to the business community, making sure that we're getting that word out. So once again, it's a tremendous amount of work, and we're bringing on several people to help us temporarily to make sure that we process these and get these out the door as quickly as possible. With that, Council, do you have any questions?
I just want to add a little bit. Rich from Highline Community College has reached out to us, in terms of business development. If he can be of help, I reached back to him today. He was not in the office. We will use that avenue also, as Mayor said, both the chamber and the business development at the Highland Community College. We will use all of those outreach to reach and to assist our businesses in whatever form that they should desire.
Very good. Council President Honda, you have a question?
Yes, I do. Thank you for all the work that's gone into this. This is really important to our business community. So the deadline is July 15th. And then
Correct.
what happens? What happens after the applications are in, and on July 15th, what happens? What's the next
I
After
think
step?
July,
Go ahead.
after July 15, we'll download and see all of the applicants and start reviewing who meets the requirement. Part of the requirement, we want to make sure that they're physically located in Federal Way. We want to make sure that they also carry current business license. We want to make sure that they've not received any of the grant or loan from the previous CARE program before. And also, we want to make sure we tailor it to the businesses with employees of about 10 employees. That is the guideline that we put out. So those are the things that we'll be screening for. The way the software is set up, we will be able to run these and query to be able to do this. But I foresee, just reviewing some of the application, there will be some that are saying, well, I don't know, getting a loan from the federal government is the same thing as grant or is the same thing as getting money. Those we may end up having to manually screen out because based on the way the loan from the federal government is set up, it's intended to be switched to a grant. So if you got a loan, it's the same thing as a grant. So I think there may be some manual things that we'll do. And based on what the mayor said, this will be selected based on lottery. So when we screen out all of the people that qualify, then we can do a lottery selection then.
Or as Councilmember Tran so eloquently said, randomly selected.
Yes, pardon me.
So
Council President Honda?
how many days after July 15th then would you anticipate being able to get the actual money to the businesses that were randomly selected?
If we get 10,000 applications, well, that probably will take some time. So if we're talking about 2,000, July 15th is Wednesday. I'm hoping that by Monday, because what we would do a special run. By Tuesday of the following, which would be July 21st, we will have the check out.
Okay.
The answer is as fast as possible. And that's why we're bringing in people. We've already brought in a formerly retired person from the Public Works Department, and we're going to bring in another individual. So at least two people are going to be brought in on a temporary basis, and it may require a third. But we're going to move fast, and we're going to go literally as fast as we possibly can.
Awesome. Thank you
Just
very
be
much.
sure that before we issue the check, we will need their 1099, which is what give us information on their federal ID, so that we have that on record. And hopefully the information that they are providing to us include the mailing address and all of that, so that we're able to cut the check and put it in the mail to the respective businesses.
A contract has to be signed with each person, so that'll have to go out as well. So we've got to make sure, since we're dealing with public money, that we go through that we're careful and thoughtful and transparent about how that's being done, and that if we send $1 out, we need to make sure that we're doing it right. So, Councilmember Russo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Dave, for that report. I just had a question, and on the 15th today, you're going to pull all the applications, or can any preliminary work be done beforehand to vet some of those out at all, or would the software allow just to put all of it in there and check everything out on time?
What the CARE Act itself must be wrapped up by October 30. Because it is federal money, remember, federal budget run from September through October. And that is the essence of that. It's October 30 that the money must be spent. But because we are doing this in 2 or 3 batches, the first batch is this one. When we're done with this first batch, based on the way it goes, and we report back to the mayor and council, then we'll make a decision on the second batch, which probably will be August, September. And we may end up with a third batch, but it must be spent by October 30.
Okay. I guess, so again, I'm just kind of wondering, so I know you mentioned to Council President Honda that you would pull everything on the 15th, correct? The first, all the applications come in, is that correct?
Right.
Okay. So I guess my question again is the software that you're using, is it going to be able to vet and do any like domicile and federal way, or can you do that earlier on the hand before kicking all that in there so we can try to get some of these done a lot quicker? I guess that's my question. I'm sorry.
The software can do some and cannot do some. Say, for example, there's a place in there where we say, well, if you do not have federal city business license, that may stop you.
Okay.
So there are some areas, by the same token, we don't want the technology getting in the way of people being able to use this too. Because if we make it so technical, then yes, there are some things that the software can do, and there's some things that we would rather, have a second look at it. Yes.
Okay.
We can use the software to be able to query, say, okay, how many of these says they are within the city of Federal Way? How many of these says they are? But at the same token, remember the computers are smart as the people that program them. So if you click, your business is in Federal Way, and you put a mailing address to Auburn, well, I want to make sure your mailing address and business location.
All right.
So I think we want to use the software, but we don't want to totally depend on the software. I think there'll still be some quick checks to make sure that some of those things that we're looking for are totally there. So the software will help and make it go fast, but it's not going to be done totally by software.
Okay. Thank you, Day. Thank you.
Okay, Council President Honda, do you have another question? Okay, great.
Sorry.
Okay.
No, I don't.
Okay, just want to make sure I responded to the hands up. Okay, thank you very much, Day. And once again, thank you, Bill and Pam. Great work. I've got Pam's taking the lead on this and doing a fantastic job. Okay, status on Business Resiliency Task Force and Community Continuity Task Forces. We did share this plan with both those organizations. Those task forces are meeting, and they're discussing ways in which we're working together and also assessing the ever-changing landscape of the COVID-19. One of the things I want to let the public know is that every day the council is updated. Bill, thank you very much for the work you're doing. There was actually a suggestion by Councilmember Moore that we send that information out daily, and it was a great suggestion. And so we took it to heart. And then actually we even got another additional suggestion from Council President Honda, which we've now incorporated in regard to just the spreadsheet. And there's a lot of information that's coming out day in and day out. We have seen a recent spike, as the council knows, in the upticks that we have, and the numbers that we're seeing. And for actually what appeared to be about 2 weeks, we were hovering at the total figure of people from Federal Way who had lost their lives from COVID-19 at 9. And today, unfortunately, we found another one of our neighbors succumbed to COVID-19. And it's just once again, it's just a very sad reminder of the, of just how deadly and how serious this is. And these are our neighbors and our friends. And I believe there's 695 total positives since this outbreak started. And so we're doing everything we can to work with King County Health, State Department of Health, and it is a changing landscape. And so I just want everybody to know that we are working with those task forces made up of local businesses, healthcare providers, schools, and businesses in the case of the Business Resiliency Task Force in partnership with the Chamber. Also like to thank the council members who have participated in those meetings as well. So, okay, and then reopening of City Hall on city facilities, Parks Director. Oh, yes.
Mayor, before you go on,
yes.
I would just like to make a suggestion. I know that Tim is under the weather, and we're hoping for the best for him. However, with the city of Seattle voting 7-2 to tax the major businesses in Seattle, and then Councilmember Shawant was on a recording today. I heard her on the radio talking about Jeff Bezos and Amazon. I would think that this would be a prime time to be sending a letter or some kind of a contact to Amazon to say, we're welcoming you here. Please come on over. I think the nearest fulfillment center for Amazon is in Renton, and they're moving over to the east side. But maybe they need to know that Federal Way is a pretty cool place to move to, with friendly community and a wonderful police force. Maybe they need to know that.
So I actually, before we went on at 4:49 p.m. today, I received an email from a citizen named Julie Mills just entitled Amazon, and had the same suggestion. So within a couple of hours, I've received the same suggestion twice. We're going to take you up on it, council member. I think that's a great idea. There are quite a number of companies that we've reached out to based on what's happening in Seattle, from a wide variety of issues I need not delve into. And we have been reaching.
And I'm understanding that they're moving to the suburbs. So come on down. We're ready. We're ready and waiting. Okay.
Well, Councilmember Kochmar, it's a great idea. I'll reach out personally tomorrow, and we'll draft a letter. And
can you imagine how difficult, Mayor, how difficult it would be to live in an apartment with 2 children under COVID and trying to work from your home, your computer, with 2 children? They need wide open spaces to run. So, and we have them.
Well, I personally reached out to several CEOs of companies, one a major drugstore chain in the region with deep roots in the community, and we communicated directly with them and other companies because I think, clearly, I think everybody knows that it's becoming more difficult to do business there. So we'll reach out. Thank you for the suggestion. Okay, now we have Director John Hutt. John?
Thank you, Mayor. Be just one moment.
Okay.
Hang on one second while I'm sharing my screen here.
May I ask a question about COVID-19, Mayor, before
Yes.
we move off of that?
Of course, yes. Go ahead.
Is it possible to
It's on my desktop.
list where the testing sites are in a very easy to find spot so that our citizens, when they have the need to be tested, can just go to one spot and find it very, very easily with the phone numbers to contact?
Sure. Great suggestion. We'll do that. We'll get it on Bill. Let's do that tomorrow. Let's get that on the webpage, and then we'll do a Facebook entry on it. Okay. And maybe hit Twitter with the suggestion. You guys, every one of these suggestions are great, and as soon as we hear a suggestion like that, we move on it. So thank you. I think that's a great idea. Did you have anything else, Council President?
I do, but I'll bring it up a little bit later during my time to talk. Thank you.
Very good. Okay, John.
Hello, Mayor, Council President, and other members of the City Council. Thank you for this opportunity. I can tell you staff has been working really hard on all of this moving target of reopening our facilities, and a multi-departmental task force, including almost all of the departments, have weighed in and been very helpful in helping us get to where we need to be. So facilities can reopen in phase 3, which is, as we all know, very much to be determined when that will be. And so I put together a short PowerPoint for you. So when we get back, several safety protocols have been put together, and a large document has been presented on getting back to work safely. So all employees will be required to wear a mask unless working alone in an office with walls and a door, or if they're housed in a cubicle a minimum of 6 feet from the nearest employee. Anytime they're in a public area, we have to be in masks, and that's important, and there won't be a problem with that. All employees and visitors must have their temperatures scanned and be within appropriate ranges to enter the building. If they're above the higher range, they must leave immediately and call their supervisor, and the supervisor will direct them what their next steps will be, whether they continue to work from home, see a doctor, and so those health protocols will all be in place. Social distancing mats are being deployed throughout City Hall right now. They're very nice, very professional, and should help with people maintaining the safe social distance. Much work has been done throughout City Hall, including plexiglass barriers that have been installed in certain areas throughout the facilities to make people safer when we get back to work. And visitors will be required to wear a mask in city buildings per the governor's mandate. Safety and sanitization equipment that Ade touched on as part of the CARES Act. We have purchased numerous things. This is a very short list. We have a much longer list, but we bought 7 Clorox 321 machines. This is a hydrostatically charged product that kills COVID, and it is amazing what it can do for an entire room quickly. And so we're waiting on getting those deliveries, but those have been ordered. These are all reimbursable by the CARES Act, so the city doesn't pay for any of this. In the end, it'll all get reimbursed. We also bought 7 very professional temperature scanners. There'll be 3 for this building, 1 for the Federal Way Community Center, 1 for the PAC, 1 for Dumas Bay, and 1 down at the Steel Lake maintenance yards. So people can walk up in 1 second, you get your temperature taken, and it tells you whether you're within the ranges that are appropriate. If not, you need to go home and call your supervisor, or if you're a member of the public, then you turn around, leave the building, and give us a call, and we'll try to help you out electronically or any other way. But that way we help keep people safe. We have purchased gallons and gallons of hand sanitizer. It was one of the hardest things to procure, as you are all aware. We actually went to a local distributor of alcohol who changed their business plan to start producing hand sanitizer. And we bought, I don't know how many gallons, 100 gallons or something like that. Don't hold me to that number, but a lot of gallons of that. Now that's starting to come available, but hand sanitizer is going to be a very important product in our lives going forward. We've purchased many, many masks, gloves, hospital grade disinfectant, and we've added compensation to our janitorial contract to ensure additional sanitization daily, as well as the sanitization that our own employees are providing throughout the day. Other facilities such as Dumas Bay, Federal Way Community Center, the PAC, and Steel Lake Maintenance Facility, all of the previously listed items and more will be in place there. And they're each working on their own unique business-related protocols as well. That the Federal Way Community Center and Dumas Bay and the PAC, they all have unique situations that they need to plan for within their own business plan. So that is a very short and direct PowerPoint. I am happy to answer any questions. I want to say that our legal department, human resources, IT, public works, community development, and city clerk, human resources, everybody has been involved in this. Police, every single department has been involved. It's not been a one department thing. It lands on us to make it happen, but without their help and assistance with all of this, it wouldn't have been possible. So we're looking forward to it, getting people back in our building safely, and I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Okay, Councilmember Baruso, do you have a question?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Thanks, John, for the report. Hey, I just had a quick question on, so entry on the temperatures coming in, if you thought about maybe doing a second temperature check during the day for employees?
We have not discussed that particularly, but it's a good idea. We anticipate people, the novelty of it is very cool, and I think people are going to probably check themselves numerous times a day because it's very cool. It's when you see it in action, you'll be very impressed. IT is doing some work on those right now, but we are in possession of those. I think people will do that, but if we, that may be a great suggestion to say, hey, why don't you do it again after your lunch hour? Certainly when they come back in the building, they have to do it if they leave the building, but I believe people will do it quite often. And there'll be 3 of them in this building alone, so pretty convenient for most people. Thank you.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. Because I know that, incubation time for different things like that, sometimes you walk in the building and you feel fine. Then during the day, all of a sudden you feel crappy. So, anyway, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, Council President Honda.
Thank you. Thanks, John, for the report. What will council chambers look like, and how will we function in that room?
Council chambers, if you've been in the building at all, Council President, you've seen that the chairs are socially distanced right now, and we are working on some different plans to accommodate council. I don't know if I'm exactly the right person to speak to exactly how your operation will run. Perhaps City Attorney Call might want to weigh in, but we can spread out 4 council members socially distanced at the dais, and at any given time, leaving potentially, there's been some talk about this, leaving potentially 3 others on a rotating basis on Zoom for a while until we can get past the social distancing requirements. But the council chambers will be cleaned at regular intervals with that Clorox machine that I described. That's just amazing. and it will remain clean. The room will only be open for the meeting itself, so it'll be cleaned and sanitized before people enter the building, which is great. And this is safe for all surfaces, and so you can even spray it right around a computer, and it doesn't hurt the computer. It's a pretty amazing product.
Mayor Farrell, it would be nice if we could be involved in talking about how council comes back to chambers.
Of course.
Yeah. I know the city of Auburn has plexiglass between their council seats, and that was something that I brought up when I first heard this a few months ago from Director Hayes, that we would have to be either socially distant or have something between us to hold public meetings. So is that something we can talk about, having so that all council members could be on the dais?
Yeah, of course.
We considered that and looked at that as an option, but we're concerned about the glare that the plexiglass will cause on any kind of a broadcast. That could be super problematic for the cameras, picking up glare and shine, and it would be a difficult task at best to do that.
Well,
Okay.
I know we're not the only council trying to figure out how to come back, so.
It's the configuration of our dais that makes it. We could certainly put up the freestanding ones like you see on Jerry Lynn's desk, but that doesn't really protect you unless you're leaning forward the whole night. If you sit back in your chair, that's no longer there, and that's where it gets a little more problematic.
Correct. Okay. Thank you.
Okay,
Mr. Mayor, if I
Councilor
can.
Moore. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I don't feel like, I mean, at least speaking for myself, I don't want to have two plexiglass right next to me. I don't want to feel like I'm in a cage. So I think, virtual opportunities or other means would be better. That's just, I'm speaking for myself. But I don't feel like sitting in a place where I feel like I'm in a cage for the next 4 or 5 hours, maybe even longer. So I would discourage that idea. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you. All right. Thank you, John.
You're welcome.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Now let's move over to. Actually, we had some recent movement in Sound Transit, and I wanted to have EJ, our Public Works Director, talk about recent decisions and actions at the Sound Transit Board as it relates to ST3 and the OMF facilities. EJ.
Good evening, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, or Council President. Sorry, I'll learn that eventually, and members of Council. So I sent an email to the entire Council earlier this afternoon at the Mayor's request regarding the realignment of Sound Transit projects. So that, I guess for your knowledge, is, at the last briefing that they had with Council members, and the Mayor received the same briefing, they discussed the realignment being done this year. However, at their most recent board meeting, the Sound Transit's board directed the chair as well as staff to delay that, basically to allow a clearer picture of the impacts related to the COVID-19 and the funding pictures and the measures the federal government are doing related to transit operations. So that effectively equates to, instead of being done this year, it is being pushed out for final consideration until summer of 2021. So it's being pushed out by roughly 9 months. And, as far as the Federal Way Link extension project goes, there's no impact related to that. That project's under construction. It's got a full funding grant agreement through the federal government. So that project will continue unchanged. The direction that the Sound Transit staff received is all of the projects that are in design are to continue until such time that Sound Transit's board tells them to do something different. So what that means is both the Tacoma Dome Link extension as well as the operations and maintenance facility south will continue in their environmental process under the same pathway that they are under right now, with the caveat that before anything proceeds from that environmental phase, that realignment structure needs to be in place. That also includes the Everett extension, and includes the Redmond extension, includes some sounder improvements, includes bus rapid transit. So it's not just this program, it's a holistic look at the agency. So we did ask Sound Transit how they're conveying that to all of the property owners for both the Tacoma Dome Link Extension project and the for the OMF South, specifically for the two proposed locations in the city of Federal Way. And they are told us they're in the process of conveying it to those property owners. So as we continue to get information, we will share it. But ultimately, it's Sound Transit's decision and ultimately their responsibility to convey that information to the property owners. So we want to make sure that they are doing that and encouraging them to keep everybody informed, city staff included. So.
Okay, Council, let's see here. All right, Council President Hunter.
So I want to clarify what you just said so that I understand what you said and what I was told by the CEO of Sound Transit a couple weeks ago at a transportation meeting. So the OMF, the South OMF, is being, will not be decided on the current schedule, but will be delayed a little bit. Is that what you just said?
No, they are proceeding with the environmental under the current schedule. However, a decision to move, to advance it to construction will not occur until the summer of 2021. It'll be part of that process. The environmental process for the OMF South extends past that point. So they're not going to make a decision whether they're going to continue it or delay it until the summer of 2021. But the direction that they gave to Sound Transit staff was to continue working unabridged until you hear during the summer of 2021. So they will continue the process that they've outlined.
Because that's what he had said to me when I asked him that question at the meeting.
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, all right. Now, moving on to the council committee reports. We've got the Parks, Recreation, Human Services, and Public Safety Committee, and that is Councilmember Kochmar.
Thank you, Mayor. We do have our next meeting on July the 14th at 5 p.m. We only have one item on the agenda, and that item is the Washington State Patrol. It's a, I'm not sure if it's a grant or just it must be a grant, but the question is to accept a $5,000 amount from the Washington State Patrol for Marijuana Eradication 2020. Marijuana Eradication 2020. If you think of the homes in Twin Lakes that we've had recently that have had marijuana grow operations, that money will help with eradicating that type of event going on in Federal Way. So that's what's going on. And also at that meeting, we've had a request from the, let's see, women's, oh goodness. We have a request from a women's group to come speak at the meeting, and we've been, I've invited them through Zoom. So we're setting it up for them to come as women's voting. Their name escapes me at the moment. Susan, can you remember what the name of the group is?
No.
Sorry. Sorry. But it will be interesting to see what they have to say at that meeting. So
it'll come to us.
Thank you. That's the only, I know. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Land Use and Transportation, Councilmember Kopang.
Thank you, Mayor. We had a well-attended meeting, and we had a fairly full agenda, but the items that we talked about were basically approval by the council, at least to consider on the consent agenda for this meeting for one item, and then for next meeting for a number of other items related to roads and annexations. We also, for those that are interested in both the airport issues and additional information on Sound Transit, we have started doing updates again on both of those items. So that is the best form right now to hear from staff in a council meeting setting on those two subjects. And both Bill Bedino and Ryan
Lynn did a great job giving the council an update on those two subjects. So the next Land Use Transportation Committee meeting will be on August 3rd, and we'll be probably on Zoom again. So thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, Councilmember Kopang. All right, now we've got Finance, Economic Development, Regional Affairs Committee, otherwise known as FEDREC. Councilmember Tran.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So we had our meeting last week on June 23rd. Beside approving our regular items like the vouchers for May 2020, monthly financial report for May 2020, the committee approved the 2020 COPS hiring grant program grant and forwarded to the full council today for your consideration. The grant amount is $750,000 from U.S. Department of Justice if we commit to hire 6 officers over the 3 years award period from 2020 to 2023. So if we approve the acceptance of this grant and we hire 6 additional officers, then our officer will the ratio of our officer would be 1.4 per 1,000 resident, and this is the numbers that we have been trying to achieve. So that is the good news. The committee also approved the tourism enhancement grant.
Discussing lately. You know, I know that Highline is taking the lead on that in our community. And here is the thing. If you were to go to Harvard this next year, you would pay enormous amounts of money to go online and not be on campus. And Wazoo, for example, is saying to their people who are coming to their school that not only do you have to have your classes online, but you also have to pay for room and board. $13,000 to go. So what they're saying now is, hey, take a year off and go to your community college. You know, and I would say go to your technical colleges as well. So might be interesting to see what happens next year. And we might be a prime spot for getting a community college here. Thank you.
Very good. Absolutely. Great idea. We're continuing to work on the higher education initiative, and we'll keep you updated as that goes on. Okay. And, you know, actually it's a joint, I wouldn't say Highline is necessarily taking the lead. It's a joint program between the City of Federal Way, Highline, University of Washington Tacoma, and Federal Way Public Schools. And where Highline is taking the lead is in regard to the acquisition of the real estate, which has been somewhat of a challenge with the various locations we have been working on. But we're working on it, and we got a grant from the legislature to be able to deploy that, and we got to get moving on that. And so we're still in the process of working on that. Okay, now moving on to public comment, the most important part of the evening. My understanding is that we've got one caller that's going to be calling in, and then we've got a letter. That's what I know right now. So Stephanie, please proceed.
Yes, sir.
Allison Taylor's up. She's
hi.
to talk.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hi.
Hi, Allison.
Hi, Mayor Farrell, Council President Honda, and the rest of the council. I didn't come to talk about fireworks, but I will say that I avenged the city council to the death this weekend on some social media where people said that the city wasn't doing enough and the council wasn't doing enough and the mayor wasn't doing enough. And I'm like, I don't know what else they could have done to prevent the amount of fireworks that we had in the last few days. And I think that we did as much planning as we could. So I'm sure you guys got a lot of evil emails, but people have to remember that we all have personal choice. That being said, I know you guys are going to be discussing the COPS grant tonight. And I just want to say that as a concerned citizen about some of the things going on with our police department, I really hope that you guys take a good long look at exactly what we can do with our money. I know that we are down over 20 cops in our city right now. And I would love for us to be able to take that cops grant and use the money that the cops grant offers us, and support it with our own money that I know we would need to do, but then reallocate some of the money for those cops that we don't have hired right now. There's 22 holes unfilled right now. So take 10 or 12 of those, take the dollars attached to those people and reinvest it in other places like social services, like social workers to go out and support the cops in less, when there's not, nonviolent calls, because I think you all know that it's coming, that people are going to say we need to make some changes here in Federal Way, in terms of some of our cops. We may not be Seattle, but we definitely have some things that need to be fixed. So I really hope when you guys are having these conversations, you look at reallocating some of that money and putting it somewhere else. We wouldn't be getting rid of anyone's jobs because there's nobody in those positions anyhow. So this is a good time before we take away somebody's income to take that money and redistribute it elsewhere and do both some reinvestment in our communities, but also not take away anyone's jobs. And that's it. Mark, I hope your snack is good enough. So I get up and walk away while I was talking. But I hope you guys all have a good night. And
listening the whole time, Allison.
You didn't bring any to share. That's all I know. So yeah, I really hope you guys have some long, hard conversations, because I think that at the end of the day, the community is going to come to you and expect better very soon. You could avoid some of those ugly confrontations by making good decisions now.
All right. Thank you very much. And boy, you did it just within 5 seconds. So great job.
I'm watching the clock.
Very good. Okay. Thank you. And Stephanie, I know that we've got a letter to read. Is that correct?
Yes, Mayor, we do have a letter.
And do we have anybody else calling in, by the way?
Not that I'm aware of. We just had one person sign up.
Okay, great.
Letter reads, Dear City Council, as the Black Lives Matter movement sweeps our country, I find myself asking, what is Federal Way doing to improve transparency and accountability? Police brutality is nothing new, but only now is getting the attention it deserves. We need to understand that as a city, we are no exception, and we have our own systematic problems. I know the Federal Way Police Department has recently received a grant from the U.S. Department of Justice to hire additional officers. That is great news, and I would love to hear a commitment that this grant will allow for other money to be diverted from the police budget and instead put towards social services, youth programs, local chemical dependency beds, local mental health counseling, social outreach, training on de-escalation, and other services that help our community. For example, those services could be paid for partially from the police supply budget, similar to what was proposed for the 2019-2020 and not approved. I want to see a real systematic change in our policing. In part, that change can start with hiring these new officers, but only if they're able to train and work with socially conscious advocates of their community. I don't want to see Black people arrested for smiling like Josiah Hunter in 2014. I don't want 53% of my city tax dollars to pay for discrimination, and I cringe when I see that in the paper. I recently learned that the FBI created a voluntary national use of force reporting program in 2019. As a voluntary program, it serves as an opportunity for truly moral departments to set themselves up as an example to be emulated. Does Federal Way participate in it? Thank you for your time and consideration. Carson Hill, Federal Way, Washington resident.
Very good. Okay. That's what we have for public comment this evening. Thank you very much. Let's see here. Okay, now moving on. And no other calls have come in since we've been doing public comment, Stephanie or Thomas?
No, Mayor, I don't have anything.
Okay, just want to check. Okay, consent agenda. These items have already gone through. Oh, actually, before we move on, Chief Wong, there were essentially the same comment or similar comments were made both in the letter and the suggestion by Allison Fine-Taylor, or Allison Fine. Can you, would you like to weigh in on any of this and specifically with some of the numbers that were mentioned? Do you have any anything to weigh in on any of this?
Sure, Mayor. Thank you very much for the opportunity. I'll try to recall all the items that were brought up. I kind of made some notes. What was proposed by the citizen here about taking the COPS grant money and maybe shifting some of that money, I would tell you that it would simply be supplanting the way I've heard that. It would certainly be inappropriate for city officials or the city to knowingly take grant funding and then use that money for something else. So that sounded like to me like supplanting that shouldn't be done. The second part, this individual said the police department budget was 53%, which would be grossly inaccurate. The PD budget for our city is 28% for the police department. Our entire city budget, annual budget, is about $115 million, with $32 million being the police department budget. So it's 28% and not 53. One of the things I wanted to point out too is for the 2020 budget, we did a really good call on the mayor and the policy group council to leave score because that brought us $2.1 million in savings that goes into the general fund. And through the budget adjustment process, Director Day, myself, and also the mayor's involvement, we're shifting another $380,000 of jail savings to the 2020 budget adjustment. So I wanted to point that important number out. We are not 53% of the department budget. In terms of the FBI voluntary reporting, yes, effective January of 2020, we began participating in that, so we do that. I also want to point out that when we talk about systematic changes or change, it's important for the policy group, all of you, to know that your police department is a nationally accredited law enforcement agency. We're one of 7 police departments in the state of Washington that's nationally accredited. There's probably about 70 agencies in the state of Washington that's state accredited by Washington Association of Sheriffs and Police Chiefs. Accreditation is a not easy thing to attain. And so in the state of Washington, you're looking at maybe 70, 80 police departments that's accredited out of 321. So vast majority of law enforcement agencies in the state of Washington are not nationally accredited or state accredited. And moving forward, as part of the police reform, you're going to be hearing a lot more about accreditation at the national level and also at the state level. Grant funding will weigh on whether you're accredited or you're seeking accreditation. There'll be money as available that probably will become available in Olympia for agencies that can't afford accreditation. So I just want you to know that we've been an accredited national agency for some time. We are clearly ahead of the curve. And what is accreditation? It simply is just best practice, national best practice. And then you have professionals that come in and conduct best practice audits. You might have the same thing like auditor's office come in to look at your finances. Well, that's what happens. And professionals come in, do an assessment, and then look for areas of improvement. That your policy just isn't a policy, but you actually practice it and you live it. So when people say, well, what is accreditation? It means a lot in the law enforcement community. We are accredited by the most prestigious accreditation organization internationally, which is a Commission on Accreditation for Law Enforcement Agencies. So I wanted to kind of share that with you. If you want to look at, all right, what's our practices? I can tell you that the last 6 years, when you take your average use of force and you look at use of force 5 years prior, we're down 30% in terms of use of force. There were years that we would be over 100 use of force in a given year. So looking at 5 years prior to 2014, we were like at 96 use of force per year. Last year we had 56. So we're down about 30%. And that hasn't impacted our crime rate either. Sometimes people say, well, maybe it's, officers aren't policing or maybe they're de-policing. Well, I can tell you our crime numbers remain steady. Our people work hard. It largely in part because of the support from the mayor and council. The officers feel that they have the support to do their job. So there's that balance. But I want to tell you, as a police chief, our use of force is down. Over 75,000 calls for service, 56 use of force, generally speaking, very, very minor use of type of force. So I hope that gives you some info. And for staffing, I want to point out one more thing. About 13 years ago now, we were authorized 136 police officers, and our ratio of police officers was 1.61 officers per 1,000 residents. And that was 13 years ago. 13 years ago, we had more officers than we do today, which is 134. We are at 1.36 officers per 1,000 residents today. And if you prove the COPS grant of adding 6 more officers, it'll give us 140 officers, putting our ratio at 1.42 officers per 1,000 residents. So, and I also want to share with you, sometimes people say, well, your crime number is okay and so forth. The biggest the number of complaints that I receive as a police chief is service level complaints. Why did it take so long to come to my burglary? Why did it take so long to come to my accident, traffic accident? Why is it taking you so long to investigate a domestic violence call involving my family member or a sex related crime? We just don't have, for a city of our size, 75,000 calls for service. We are not overstaffed. And only reason that we're actually getting by right now is because our calls for services overall is down because of COVID. But I can tell you the reason, as a policy decision, we decided to increase the number of officers. It wasn't very long ago, 2016, when we had our peak. Crime is cyclical, and crime wave will go up and down. 2016 and 17 was really a bad year for us. And since then, we've been able to reduce crime. So I hope that gives you some information that's helpful.
Two things, Chief. Can you talk about the vacancies? There was a number of 20 that was mentioned. And then I've got another question for you when you get done with that. Where are we at with the vacancies?
We have 6 vacancy right now to fill, and we just did a lateral applicant today. We're also looking at an officer just from north of here we're looking to hire. But the bottom line is we have 10 people waiting to go to the academy right now. We have some here at the station, some waiting to come on. Really, operationally, it's been a huge impact because of COVID. The academy actually shut down for a while. And they did open up, but they're not running at full capacity. So that's our lifeline in terms of our staffing. So that's been a problem for us, but we're going to get some people into the academy, I think, later this month, some in next month. So we're going to start getting our people in, but it has been an issue. But on the other hand, we've had 5 resource officers working right now, and we just sent our mall officers back, but we had 3 additional mall officers because of the mall shutdown. We had extra 8 officers, so that kind of got us by. But I hope that answers your question there. Okay, great.
And then, can we do better? I think that's the question that when people hear about this, do we have an ethos in the police department to do better?
Absolutely. I mean, we're careful, we're thoughtful, but on the other hand, there are areas of improvement we can certainly make. We're constantly looking at that. I think that's what accreditation means, that you're constantly looking for ways to improve your organization. And we do. We're very careful about who we hire. We look at the psychological profile test. We try to hire the right people in the organization. I think that's a key. And then we provide the right level of training, good policies, accountability. But I will tell you that we do hire from the human race, and sometimes mistakes are made, or we could do things better. But I could tell you, just being a nationally accredited agency, I really believe that we are a cut above, and you're going to be hearing more about that moving forward.
Okay. Why would Lieutenant Schwan say that there were 22 vacancies? There was, I think he was quoted in the paper. Can you explain that?
Yeah, 22 not deployed. So when you look at people waiting to go to the academy, we have officers that's in training now in the field training program. And then we have, 6 vacancies. So when you add all those people up, and we have people on light duty as well, when you add all those people up, they're not deployed yet.
Okay. All right. Thank you. And I want to let the council know that we are planning a community meeting, and with the community to talk about some of these issues, and specifically targeted to and focused on making sure that we deal with police issues, and with a focus on making sure that the African American community is heard and people of color are heard and represented in our community. So we're going to have a community meeting later this month about this. And at that meeting, and probably in a subsequent city council meeting, I'm going to be asking the chief to delve deeper into what does it actually mean to be accredited? What does that mean in regard to what does that assure is happening, and whether it's de-escalation training or real life scenarios, that kind of thing. Because I've received some feedback that Chief, and I've talked to you about this, that it's not just enough to say that we're CALIA certified. I think the community expects and deserves to hear, what does that actually mean in real terms? And we're gonna get into that. I'd like to spend a little. You've explored it a bit tonight, and I appreciate that. And then what we're going to do is probably the next during an emerging issues or special presentation, delve into that deeper, and probably at that community meeting later this month. All right, Councilmember Kochmar.
Thank you very much, Mayor. So what the letter writer and Allison, I believe, are requesting or asking for, part of which is, do we have a team member who goes with our police, for example, when there's a call for a mentally ill individual, somebody who's trained to deal with that type of an individual, or somebody who's trained to deal with the homeless population, to help them get off the street? Do we have anybody that, perhaps not from the police budget, but do we have anybody who's a team member who goes with our police officers, or is it the ability to do that?
We don't have anybody on staff here at Federal Way, just like you said, but we do work with King County Mobile Crisis Unit. They also have a facility in Seattle that we can take people up if they have availability in terms of bed. So we do partner with them. If there's someone that's suffering mental health issues and it's a long, let's say, a problem-oriented solution, they will come down and they will assist us. So we do partner with them. They're not always available or readily available, but we do have resources for that. And also, in terms of the homeless, we work with other organizations, but our Special Operations Unit officers have access to all this resources that are available, whether it's Salvation Army or United Gospel Mission, working with them for availability for beds or resources. So we do have resources working with regional partners.
Okay. So, Mayor and Chief Wong, I'm a former social worker, so I'm trained. So, and when you're trained to recognize how to de-escalate a situation, which I know that the police officers are as well, but their training is different. So I'm wondering if we couldn't bring that into the conversation when you have your meeting, Mayor Farrell. I know that that's one of the things that people are asking for. It's just something that we might discuss.
That's a great idea. Thank you. I think you're absolutely right, and you're welcome. I would let you know that, and Greg probably knows this, and the chief certainly knows this, that when people are in a mental health crisis, and actually Susan would know this too as a registered nurse, there's a mental health system in place in which CDMHPs, county designated mental health professionals, are called in to make the decision of whether someone is a danger to self, others, or gravely disabled. And so that CDM, those CDM MPs are very, very instrumental in making sure that people can get the help that they need. So there is a network. Council President Honda.
Thank you. So Chief, thanks for talking to us about the statistics and what your department is doing. Since the pandemic hit and we've had everyone at home and children at home and all sorts of stress levels, people not working, all sorts of things going on, have your officers seen more mental health issues as they respond to calls, or has that not been as much of an impact as I've heard it is in other areas?
Council President Honda, I don't have actual numbers, but anecdotally, it seemed that way at the beginning. We were dealing with quite a few mental health type of calls, but lately I haven't been seeing or being notified as many incidents. So I can't say definitively, but I don't think it's been a huge impact at this point for us.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, all right, thank you. Okay, and Councilmember Tran.
Thank you, Mayor. Chief, thank you for the information. I did review the application package that you submitted to Department of Justice when you apply for this grant. And I have a little bit of concern in regard to the number of hours training for your officer. So I'm gonna go ahead and list it here. There was a question that asked racial and ethnic bias that includes elements of implicit unconscious bias, and you listed 1 hour of training per year. The second question is gender bias in response to domestic violence and sexual assault. The training is 1 hour per year. The third question is bias toward lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender individual. Again, the training is only 1 hour per year. Is there a way we can increase the amount of training given the situation that you see around the nation at this time?
Okay, I think I understood your question. What Washington Administrative Code requires in the state of Washington is that officers receive minimum of 24 hours training per year. One of the areas that we're really proud of is you have to invest in training, and really good training in order to, that's one of the factors of setting a very solid foundation within your organization, setting a very good culture. I could tell you that one of the things we do provide far more training that's required, and there's reporting requirements being a nationally accredited law enforcement agency. So one of the things that we have to, these are annual trainings, and I'll just maybe mention just a few of the key ones. Fair, impartial training is something that we have to do on an annual basis. Crisis intervention training is something that we have to provide on an annual basis, and that's part of the initiative I-940 that came along. We do legal updates with our law department on an annual basis. We do defensive tactics training, and we put in reality-based training, de-escalation training with that. So reality-based is important. Every year we do a chief's address where I meet with every one of our employees and I talk about our mission, our vision, which is really earning the public's trust. We talk about our core values, and I share with them every year about that. And recently, in light of what happened in Minneapolis, I took this opportunity to go around the department again and really just talking about the issue at hand. And I really think, from my perspective, I think it's helpful for our organization to hear it from me directly, how our core values, that we treat all citizens with respect. So we've been talking at different levels within our organization. I haven't reached all the work groups, but I'm going to continue that this week and probably next week as well. So, and then we have firearms training. We have to qualify twice a year with our pistol, once with our rifle. Again, we incorporate de-escalation training into our firearm. When somebody says they've received firearm training, it just doesn't simply mean just shooting the gun. There's a lot involved in terms of de-escalation, handling of the weapon, and so forth. We also provide, ethics training, and we do that every other year. Less lethal training, taser training, that goes on annually. We provide sexual harassment training, value and diversity training. So as being part of the nationally accredited organization, you have to provide all those training. And minimum, I mean, if a department employee just went to mandatory department training within the agency, minimum, you're going to get 50 hours of training. But of course, there's a lot of other training for specialized units, so they put in for training for that. So we do invest significantly in training. That's one of the discretionary funds that we have. And let's just say, hypothetically, if you cut police department budget, that's probably one of the areas we have to cut back, because otherwise it's usually salary and benefits. But that's an area that we have some discretion. But we've been very blessed in that the policy group has always allowed us to train as an organization. And one of our staffs, when we do like a survey internally, they said they were appreciative of the training that they receive here at the Federal Police Department. And I really believe because of this training and the messaging and our core values and our foundation, that is one of the reasons why our use of force has been down for the past 6 years, a steady decline, because we're drilling into our people over and over. And I think that technical training works. And a combination of when you're dealing with crisis intervention stuff, it's really about care and compassion. And that's what we drill into our people, and they're getting those type of training. I think that's helpful. There are agencies, because of budgetary reasons, there's officers they're barely maybe getting the 24 hours of training and not getting a lot of the that's what accreditation does, is it forces you to do that. And then assessors come in and they do an audit to make sure you're doing those trainings.
Okay. Well, we're going to get really into the details of that. Councilor Tran, did you have a follow-up?
No, I think we can have this at another discussion. And, with the city growing and the city makeup of almost 50% of people of colors, I think is beneficial for our police department and city staff to have additional training, So I think it will benefit us and benefit the resident in the city. But we can, talk more about that at a different, meeting. Thank you, Mayor.
But the message, you're welcome. And I think the message that we want to make sure that we send out is, and I'm sure I hear the chief say that all the time, we can always do better, and we're going to. And so that's what he says to me all the time. And so I'm bragging on you, Chief. You're doing a great job, and thank you for what you're doing. Councilmember Moore, you had a question?
Yeah, actually, I appreciate Councilor Tran's question, and Chief, thank you for your response. And that's I think more work needs to be done in this training, and I think as a council, I know that's something that we could also get the training on as well when it comes to racial and bias treatments. But I know that Councilor Johnson and I, we talked about this, Chief, you'll remember this. We asked some questions about what type of training do our police officers get when it comes to race and equity. So I'm glad that we are once again reviewing this and discussing this. So I look forward to digging deeper to understand how we can improve this, which I think is really important. Yeah, I think I'll end there. Thank you.
Mayor, if it's okay with you, I'd like to maybe add one more part of it. If we
yes, please. Yeah.
It's great when we have significant incidents like what happened in Minneapolis. The policy group, obviously at the national level, state level, even local, are going to look at, police. I want you to keep in mind, obviously, we can be better in the law enforcement arena. But I think there's, we have to look at the root cause. If you really want to reduce violent police encounters, and we can de-escalate, but at some level you need cooperation, right? You go to a domestic violence call, you de-escalate, but at some point the citizens give us authority through all of you, our policy group, giving the police. We're the only branch of government that gives the citizens give authority to use physical force if we have to. But I think you have to look at the root cause. You really have to look at inequities in education, substance and drug addiction, because we're dealing with people that's under the influence of drugs and narcotics, and we're still not over the opioid and pain pill issue, the crisis. So we're dealing with that. There's other factors, whether it's addressing, poverty, mental health issue. If we can address those issues, it's naturally going to reduce the number of contacts that police are going to have with people on the street or a resident under those circumstances. So as you make decisions moving forward, please keep that in mind. You can reform the police, but that is not going to be the solution to the outcome or the goal you're trying to achieve.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Okay.
Mayor?
Yes, Council President Honda.
The meeting you're talking about, will that be a Zoom meeting or will
Yeah, it'll be a Zoom. Yeah, in late July.
do you have a date for that?
Not yet. Not yet.
Okay.
I hesitated. It was one of those things where once you start talking, it's like, I'm working on it. We had a meeting, a Zoom meeting with the Federal Way Black Collective. I don't think it was last week. I think it was the week before last week. Anyway, it was recently, within a week or so. I think it was the Thursday or Friday. Yeah, it was not. God. Anyway, it was last week. And we I think it was last Thursday maybe. And anyway, we were talking about that meeting, and it was suggested. There's been some suggestion about an ongoing meeting, with the African American community and people of color, and we're working on that right now. I know there's been a long-standing community meeting with the Korean American community, and we're working on setting something up and then having it be on a regular basis. So,
Well,
go ahead.
so our first, nope, never mind. What I was going to say would not work. I was just, forget that. I was going to suggest a date, but it wouldn't work now that I think about it. So.
Okay. I'll actually, when we're offline, was somebody going to say something?
Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you. When we're offline, Council President Honda, let's talk about it. And I want to run some dates by you. And also, I'm going to need your input, Council, on exactly what this looks like moving forward. Before we just lurched into something, I am going to be reaching out to you because I need your feedback. And I did meet via Zoom with Council members Baruso and Azuffa Dawson last week as well. And so we had a good discussion about some of these issues. But I think it's important that we get input from the council, and that we really open up dialogue in our community and make sure that we're communicating and not just, talking to them. Some of the most important things you ever do is listen. It took me a long time to learn that, still in the process. So I think it's very important that we listen to the people of our community. I see Lydia laughing. So I think and people need to feel like they're being heard too. And these are difficult conversations, and we need to have them, and we need frank conversations. And I'm looking for a way that we can get together and invite the communities, invite the communities of color, and really have a candid conversation that's proactive, that's positive. And it doesn't have to be all positive, but I think I certainly it's got to be constructive. And we want to do better by our entire community. So there, see, this is how you push the button, but I think when we get into these sessions, I'm going to be talking less, listening more. Anybody have any suggestions on that, or any? Let me know. Does anybody have anything else to add on that right now before we move on? Okay. All right. Thank you very much. All right, now let's move on to the consent agenda. These items have gone through council committees, can be passed with one motion. I'll go ahead and read all the items, and then I'll be looking for a motion. Item A, under item 5 under the consent agenda, minutes for the June 16th, 2020 regular meeting. Item B, vouchers for May 2020. Item C, monthly financial report, May 2020. Item D, tourist enhancement grant recommendation for July through December 2020. Item E, the 2020 COPS hiring program grant that you've been hearing about. Council, would you want to pull any particular item for separate discussion or separate consideration? Councilmember Tran.
Am I supposed to make a motion to close public hearing?
I think actually no. That's the next one that's under public hearing. We're under consent agenda. Would any member of the council like to pull a particular item for separate consideration? Okay, not hearing that motion. Council President Honda, do you have a motion?
I move approval of items A through E on the consent agenda.
Second.
Okay, there's been a motion and a second regarding approval of items A through E. Is there any discussion? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? All right, the matter's passed unanimously. Item 6, public hearing. At this time, I will open the public hearing. And Councilmember Tran, I'll call on you in a few minutes when we get to the right time. This is the 2019-20 Biennial Budget Amendment. We have 2-year budgets, and this is the opportunity in the second year of that budget to adjust things. But Ade, I don't want to step on your presentation. otherwise known as Tuesday. So at this point, before I say any more, Ade, why don't you take it away?
Thank you, Mayor Farrell, Council President Under. I think I'll try to split my presentation into two. The first one is to give you an update on the financial condition of the city as of the end of June. Then we'll move to the budget itself. Okay. Sorry, I think I'm showing the wrong. Okay. The update on our sales tax revenue, we went through these last month. Sales tax account for 36% of our general fund. Property tax is about 26%, and building permit fee is about 8%. Then I'll go over the traffic safety red light fund also, utility tax, which account for about 18% of our general fund revenue, then Prop 1. The sales tax through the end of June, and the year to date is about 6.17%. That is January through June. And our sales tax actually for the month of June, which will be April, that we actually received in June. As I shared with you last month, because of our major sales tax producer, Home Depot, Lowe's, Costco, those are the major sales tax producer for the federal way. That is part of why we are not suffering as most of the other cities. So if you see our actual sales tax revenue is actually about 1.2, and the budget also was about 1.23. So that came to about 94% of the budget. So we did not do very badly. So if you compare us to Tequila, where the mall was closed, Home Depot was now closed, Lowe was now closed, Walmart was now closed. Those are the major sales tax producer for the city. And that is part of why our sales tax is still doing well. Based on the projection that we are looking through the end of the year, I'm looking at a very small amount reduction in our projected sales tax. So I'm thinking out of a 16 million that we're expecting this year, maybe we'll come up with about 14 and a half, which with what other cities are going through in sales tax, we're doing extremely well. Property tax, again, as I share with you, the only thing that can happen to property tax is the delay, the cash flow. They owe that money, whether they can pay it now or we'll get our money when they sell the property. So what the property tax can do is affect our cash flow, but we will get revenue. So for property tax, year to date, revenue is 5.8. Year to date, only 157 short of the 2020 budget. So we are doing reasonably well in there too. And actually, the year to date is more than the 2019 year to date. The current budget through the end of June is 5.96, and we made 5.8. So that is really, really good. And if you notice, the June here, we budgeted 55,000 for the month of June, but we actually collected 16. That is because King County allowed property owners to delay their property tax payment till June instead of May. So our sales tax revenue in May was really low, but they paid in June. Building permit, I think right there you can see what is happening. I think also you can see in the January through June what is happening. Building permit revenue account for about 8% of the total general fund revenue. And year to date currently is about 1.05 million, and we're supposed to be about 1.7 million by now. Last year, as of this time last year, we've done 2.29 million. So I'm projecting from July through December, those are estimates, and I'm thinking before the end of the year, because of the pandemic, because of the possible recession, out of the budget of 3.6, I'm estimating we probably will lose about 1.2 million in revenue. So we will lose almost about 1/3 of our revenue in building permit. Traffic safety, which is considered red light. The major issue with traffic when we had the shutdown, I mean, it was like there was no vehicle in Washington State. I-5 was dry. The same thing was happening in the city of Federal Way. So if you look at June, which is actually better than May, so we only did almost about a quarter of what we're supposed to do. And what we actually did in May was very, very, very low. So again, out of a total budget of 3.8, I'm thinking that before the end of the year, we probably will not be able to make that 3.8. It probably will end up being about 2.7. So we will be short by about 1 million. There's a reserve in this account for 1.2. And I will point this out again when we're dealing with the budget. So what will carry us through the end of the year in traffic safety is the reserve. But when we're doing the budget for 2021, that reserve will not be there. According to the current policy, we can use the reserve with the approval of the council, and we have 3 years to make it up. So there's a 1.2 million. So when we reduce the revenue by 1 million, we're reducing that required reserve of 1.2 by 1 million. So, but to a great extent, the reserve is intended to carry us through a temporary revenue shortfall. Utility tax. The utility tax laws in this case is very, very minimal, and this is not even factoring the revenue from water and sewer. This is based on the current budget that you've approved. So I'm saying, despite the lockdown, most buildings are still heating up their houses, still heating up the offices, and actually, while people were staying home, that means the office heating system was going, and the home heating system was also going. So that is part of why the revenue from this is now greatly affected. Yes, they're not using, maybe the light were turned on in some of the offices. So, but the loss from this amount is very, very minimal, despite the fact that we're banking on almost 10 million as a revenue source for this. Prop 1, that is the 1.75% of the 7.75% of the utility tax that we charge. So what do we pay out of this? That is where we pay for the code compliance, we pay for the prosecutor, we pay for the court clerk, and half of a judge, maintenance worker, record specialist, police officers, and the lieutenants. From this, just like the regular utility, I'm estimating a revenue shortfall in this will be less. Through the end of June, we're only short by about $73,000. So for the rest of the year, I'm looking at just a loss of about just 150,000 out of a budget of 2.7 million. So utility tax too will be well. But again, part of what will make the entire city work is the revenue that we'll get from water and sewer for both Prop 1 and the utility tax. And I just shared with the mayor, I'm meeting with the finance director for Lake Haven tomorrow to be able to determine, okay, what is the next level? Where do we go from here? And try to figure out when we will get the money. Not only will we get the taxes, we will also get the interest on the amount that accrue from 2018 and 2019. So when I meet with him tomorrow, we'll be able to come up with a plan on where we go from here. But again, this presentation does not include that money at all. As I've said before, I do believe that we will survive 2020 and we will do better than most other cities. Utility tax on water and sewer, that will come in. I'm expecting about $1 million a year. Just to clarify things, when I say $1 million, that is above the franchise fee that we're getting now. That is the new money, because the franchise fee that we have now is about 3.7. We're levying about 7.75%. So it's the difference between what we're getting and what we should be getting, that 1 million annually that we'll be getting, that will account for. I think our staff level, as the mayor has done before, where we reduce staff in some divisions, I think that is part of what will help us. The pay level, I think compared what we pay and what other cities are paying, that is part of what will make us do better. For us, living score, of course, the 2.1 million that we saved is part of what we'll be able to use for the revenue shortfall that we're dealing with. And score ADP, I've mentioned that before. That is part of what I appreciate what Chief Wang has done. I think because of the current ADP that we have, and I'll deal with that. I will explain that when I get to the budget presentation. Even though we budgeted certain amount to pay for the incarceration of inmates, but because our ADP is reasonably low now, so we will not be able to spend all of that money. I think that is part of what will reduce our spending in 2020, which is a good thing. And of course, the reserve that we have, which is a good thing. The reserve that we have, as I was mentioning regarding the traffic light, even though the revenue this year will be short, but because of the reserve, we can still survive the entire year despite the loss of $1 million. So the reserve that we have is part of what will help us. I think as we move forward down the road, Sound Transit will also be a major player in that, because they will be doing construction, so there will be sales tax that will be coming from there. Top sales taxpayers, as I said, unlike Tequila, where their top sales taxpayer were located in the mall. Our top sales taxpayer were those individual businesses that I mentioned, and they are doing well, and they did well. What to keep an eye out for the 2021, even though I felt so comfortable about 2020, just to be straight up with you, I think 2021 will be a little bit challenging. Yes, will we do better than most cities? Yes, we will still do, but it will be more challenging than 2020. Why will it be challenging? We will have used up our retro savings, current labor agreement, which we've already agreed to some salary increase for some employees, so that will increase our costs. Closed business, I think some businesses will not survive this COVID-19, so we will lose some businesses. The pandemic, I think it depends on how we're able to quickly get out of this. and that will probably affect us in the long run. Real estate market, based on what we're seeing, I think if there's no real estate activities, that will put pressure on general fund because we will have to cover our debt payment. So instead of using RE to pay our debt, it may put a pressure on the general fund. Construction, less street revenue, that means sales tax on construction materials will also be less. And if we have less street, that may also affect what we're able to fund in the street or street improvement. So I think I shared with you last time too, banks are reporting people are saving more. With people saving more, that means less spending. With less spending, that means less sales tax. I think Mr. Puddin, which is one of our residents, shared some information with me in the last few weeks, which he was right. The city of Federal Way has a relatively higher unemployment rate than some of our neighboring cities. And it's probably because Federal Way, to a great extent, is a bedroom community. These employees work someplace else, but when they are out of job, they will require services in Federal Way. They make their money someplace else, but when they are unemployed, they will demand service where they live. So those are some of the things to keep in mind that may affect 2020. So in terms of the financial update, that is what I have. Now I will move into the budget unless the council has some questions on this particular section of my PowerPoint.
Sorry, we've got a quick question from Council President Honda.
Thank you. So if 2021 is challenging, as you just said, what does 2022 look like?
Oh, well, 2022 definitely will be challenging because part of what I'm saying is the reserve will not be there. So if it's not there in 2021, it won't be there in 2022. You know, I think that is why cautions needs to be taken. Here's a good example, and I'm not suggesting for the council to go one way or the other. And I think whatever decisions that you make now will affect what we do 2 years from now. When you decide to leave SCORE, even though we didn't predict this, but that is part of what put us in this position. When you decided to levy tax on the utility tax, even though we did not predict where we are now, but that is part of what is putting us in this position, which is better than most of the neighboring cities. So what you do now would determine where we are in 2021 and 2022. Yes, both 21 and 22 will be a little bit rough. But again, we would do better than Auburn. We'll do better than other cities. You know, and I think because of our Lake Haven victory, some of the cities are already looking into levying their own utility tax now. So yes, we are the one that pay the legal fees, but these other cities are getting on the bandwagon. But we will still do better than them, but we will feel a little bit of pain.
Thank you.
Okay, let's move on to the next. I don't think we've got. Let's see here. Okay, let's move on to the next presentation today.
Okay. Okay. This is the budget amendment for 2020. Some of the things that we should be watching out for is what is the state guidelines and how do we stand? You know, so is the number that I'm presenting to you, is it in line with the state guidelines? what is the current city policy and how do we fare according to that policy. Some of that policies, take for example, your general fund, you require that we have 9 million. So part of the question should be, do we have that 9 million there? Our utility tax, we should have a reserve of 1.5. Do we have that in there? Traffic light, we have 1.2 million. Do we have that? I just pointed that out that no, we will not have that. Risk management, did we meet the requirement in those? And also for me to be able to point out what are the major changes in the budget, and I will try to answer all of those questions. For general fund, in terms of the revenue, in 2019, we have excess of 1.2 million. That is, we had more revenue and we spent less. So we generate 1.2 million more than we anticipated. So that is part of what we're carrying forward into 2020. That is good news. What I just went through in terms of the sales tax, and I'm saying, okay, well, we're going to have some issue with our sales tax. So that is what we're looking at. Building permit, we're going to have some reduction in our building permit. That is what I have in there. The sales tax, some of these estimates are the numbers that we started with almost about 2 months ago. And these are revenue losses. Now 2.93, that is the grant that we're getting from the state. And grant the CD is getting, that is a new revenue coming into 2020. Police contract, that is about 470,000 for the police to be able to provide additional security for some businesses in city. That is truly a wash because I will show you the expenses. So what we do is for those businesses, we use our employees, our police officers, after they're done with their regular shift with the city. So after they've done either their 8 hours or 10 hours, then they can work as a security in those areas and we pay them overtime. This is the money that we use for their overtime. When we do the monthly financial report, we often show paid city overtime and compensated overtime. That is what this is. So that is the new contract from those businesses. This is the additional money that I'm hoping to transfer from utility tax. And CD lien recovery, that is when we put lien on property for either cleaning their place or whatever it is. So we're thinking about 30,000. Automation revenue, that is we're charging people that are bringing in their permit an automation fees that we will use to replace the software that we're using to process their permit. This amount is currently in general fund, but it should not be in the general fund. It should be in a fund by itself. And we created that fund, to make sure that what we're collecting for automation is separately identified and we're using it exclusively for that. And about 140. An additional grant from King County for COVID-19, about 150. So I'm adding a little bit over 3 million more into the revenue. So the next, okay, so what spending are we adding? And thank you, Council President Under. It's intended to be target condemnation. It's not performing our condemnation. As if we decide to condemn, the target property, whatever, either the legal fees or the settlement, just having some money there to use if we need it. That is what that is. And COVID-19 grant to the businesses, a little bit over 2 million. The reason why I have this separate individual COVID-19 is to be able to explain to you, this is what we're setting this aside for this, we're setting this aside for this out of the 2.9 million, so that we can trace and we can track each one of them. As Director Hutton explained, we're buying supplies, in terms of cleaning, in terms of trying to divide the workplace to make sure we're able to do social distancing. That is what we plan to spend on that. Police overtime for contract, that is the revenue that I was showing in the previous page. So it's just a wash. If we were to deny the police to spend this 0.47, then I'll have to remove the revenue on the other side. So it's totally a wash, And on Federal Way, that is the software that we're developing for the citizens to be able to reach the city hall and be able to report, or there's a pothole on this street, there's this, so that the city can better respond to that. Dumas Space Center, that is additional funding that we have to give them to make sure their reserve requirement is maintained. The same thing for Performing Arts Center and the same thing for Federal Way Community Center. And this is the spending of the county grant. I think in the revenue side, I show that also as 150. This is disbursing that same amount. It's coming in, it's going out straight. And additional court, this is to be able to improve the court system, either additional cameras and all of that, to make sure they're practicing social distancing. All of these are coming straight out of the grant. So if we don't spend these, then we won't be able to claim those grants. And this is our score savings, So we're able to fund most of this because I'm decreasing spending from score. So I put this in there for you to be able to show the impact of leaving the score. Utility tax, okay? As I pointed out in the previous presentation, because we're estimating certain loss of revenue in utility tax, a very small amount, just about 500,000. That is what this amount represents. But this is what we hope to bring in. This is just the portion that belongs to the utility tax. The amount that we're going to bring in is actually almost about 2.8. But remember, the 7.75% of our property tax, 6% belongs into this utility tax, and 1.75 belongs to Prop 1. So that is why we have just about 2.2 here, and the other 700,000 belongs in Prop 1. This is the new revenue for solid waste. I think the council approved the additional utility tax on solid waste. So, and that will take effect this year in October. So that is the portion that will come in later this year. So I'm adding additional 2.07 million, and these are my spending. Risk management. Part of the requirement for risk management is we need to maintain 1.2. Because of some of the things that we're paying for in risk management, they need additional funding. So I'm funding risk management out of this utility tax by this 0.8 million. And the target condemnation that I show with you in the general fund, I'm transferring, we're proposing to transfer 0.85 million from utility tax to general fund to cover that condemnation. Arterial Street, to be able to do more Arterial Street, we're transferring about 380,000. And street, that is just about 10,000. And that gives us a total of 2.05 million out of the new 2.07 that were brought in. So both the utility tax and general fund will still maintain the required fund balance according to your policy. And this is Prop 1, which is 1.75% of our utility tax. Again, for Prop 1 as well, last year we brought in a little bit more revenue than we spent. So almost about 130,000 more. So that is what we are carrying forward. And COVID-19 revenue shortfall, about 160. New revenue on water and soil, now that's the 63,000. That's 630,000. And we are covering part of what can be paid for out of this Prop 1 is public defender. So we are paying for public defender out of Prop 1, which would be about 600,000. Traffic safety. We carry forward from 2019 to 2020 a deficit in traffic safety. That means we had about $190,000 less than we planned to have in Prop 1. And again, because of the shutdown, people were not driving. As I showed you in the previous report, we're expecting a decrease in revenue of about this much. But because of the carry forward, we use general fund to bring them to par. But for this year, there's no plan in what their total revenue shortfall at the end of the year. This is, as of now, this is just an estimate of what they will end up with. So being an estimate, it is possible by the end of the year, it may be less than that, it may be more than that. Then in 2021, just as we're transferring from general fund to cover this deficit, depending on what this is, that may be what we have to do. But based on your policy, each time we use the fund balance, we have 3 years to make it up. So either in 2021, we will have to deal with this, or we can deal with it over a 3-year period based on your policy. And here's the risk management. For risk management also, we carry forward from 2019 about 170,000. And we transfer from the utility tax about more than 800,000 to be able to cover the flagpole, to be able to cover the settlement, the loss settlement, that is about 675,000 or something like that. So with these, we put more revenue in there than we're actually spending. But the reserve requirement for risk management is 1.2, and we have that 1.2. So in conclusion, the budget amendment that we have will meet the state requirement. All the funds except the traffic light also meet the council reserve requirement. The traffic light fund reserve is short due to the loss of revenue from COVID-19. It's because of the shutdown, the estimated revenue now is below. Not because of spending, it's because of the revenue shortfall. As I mentioned before, I do believe 2020 will be fine, and we just have to keep an eye on 2021. And I'll be glad to answer any question you have.
Okay. Council President Honda.
Okay, I forgot my hand was up, but I do have a question. On the flagpole, is the driver that hit that flagpole not going to be able to cover the cost of replacing it?
Well, let me say first of all, actually, hold on. Let me talk about. I ask about this every Monday at our management team meeting. So we need to say first and foremost that the individual who is suspected of hitting the pole still has his case pending in Federal Municipal Court. And I absolutely must say there is a presumption of innocence of that person at this stage in the proceedings. So that's a pending criminal matter. Should it result in a conviction, I've instructed legal counsel to seek restitution and certainly any kind of judgment. The charge is DUI, and any kind of condition would require restitution. The insurance will likely cover a portion of it, but only a certain portion. What we'll have to do is make a cost-benefit analysis. Once the criminal case is resolved, one way or the other, about whether this individual, we'll have to run a cost-benefit analysis on an individual civil suit to recover, and whether that makes sense from a monetary standpoint. So there's really two tracks: the criminal and then the civil. But I ask about that pending case every week, so we're on it, and we will seek redress with that individual's car insurance, but it will likely only take a fraction of that. So we'll have to analyze separately. Any other follow-up questions, Nat?
No, I'll wait to see what other people have for questions, because I've asked quite a few questions up until now.
Thank
So-
you.
That's okay.
Actually, I appreciate that. Thank you.
I sent a lot of questions to a day earlier, so.
Well, they're good. They're all good questions. And actually, your son is you're in Iowa, and the poll was just finished. EJ, was the poll finished yesterday or today?
It was put on a truck this morning and left Iowa this afternoon on its slow journey across the U.S.
So we're at least, I think, 12 weeks ahead. So
Correct.
3 months ahead of schedule.
Awesome.
Yeah, it is good. It's good, but so anyway, that's the answer. Okay, so Councilmember Tran, then Councilmember Moore, and then Councilmember Kochmar. So Councilmember Tran?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Ade, thank you for your presentation. So I do agree with you that for 2020, I think we are in good shape, despite the fact that we lost revenue in many different areas. But I think the revenue that we saved from SCORE and the Lake Haven water tax, I think really helped us get through this in 2020. So, but 2021, I absolutely agree with you that the picture is not that pretty for 2021. Then would it be advisable for us to start looking at ways to, reduce our expenditure, or don't commit ourselves into some of the major expenditure moving forward?
Oh yeah. Ade, sorry. Sorry, go ahead.
Yes, I think yes. And I'll point you to take, for example, and I'm sure you did your approval knowing all of those things full well. The COP grant that you just approved will require a match. So maybe about 30 or 40%. So we need to be ready to fund that. Yes, of course, the priority of the council is the security, but those are part of what will put additional burden. Also, we have a COP grant that is in place now. That is good for 3 years. After 3 years, the city takes on the entire burden. Those are the big full picture that you need to be looking at. I think when the mayor proposed his budget, I think those are part of the scrubbing that he will present to the council, because all of those things will be self-evident at that time. I think the best thing that we can do now needs to be careful in commitment that we make, because it's that commitment that will tie your hand down the road. As I mentioned in my presentation, we've committed to some salary increases. We will have to live up to that next month. So even if we were to maintain our cost the same thing as this year, because of that commitment, our cost is automatically going up next year. But the good news is, again, even though we'll feel some pain, I still do believe we'll do better. And some other cities are beginning to look at you. We will be getting, in addition, $1 million a year, from the utility. So that is part of what will lessen our blow. The utility tax that you levy on solid waste, that will bring additional revenue. Again, that is part of what will lessen the blow. Where we will feel the pinch is we use the extra money from utility tax from 2018 and 2019. So about 1.8 million in 2020. That will be the essence of our pain. But we will have additional revenue. So again, we will do better than most cities, but because we are using some of that reserve to absorb us in 2020, that is where the pain is. Yes, you should start looking at where we can save now. But again, as I said, Mayor, I'm sure will bring a balanced budget to you, and that will be addressed in the budget process.
That's great. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Councilmember Moore, then Councilmember Kochmar.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor. Ade, could you speak to what do we use the funds for the traffic light
Absolutely.
cameras?
Yes,
Thank you.
absolutely. The traffic light, I think that is one of the beauty. We use it exclusively for traffic related. We pay some of the patrol officers out of there. We pay for some of the traffic light infrastructures in there. We pay for some traffic engineer out of our public works in there. That is all traffic related.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Councilmember Koch. Oh, Councilmember Moore, did you have any other?
It's okay. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Councilmember Kochmar.
Just a quick little reminder. I just would like to remind people that your auto insurance follows your vehicle. So let's say an adult or a child who's borrowing your car and gets into an accident. That flagpole is just kind of a reminder of how much things cost. And a lot of people have minimal auto insurance, and really what you should carry, and I'm not making recommendations, is just a general idea that it's really better to have 300,000 per person, 500,000 per accident. That's going to cover you a little bit better when you're in maybe not you being negligent, but maybe a member of your family being negligent. So that's just something I'd like to public service announcement. But one other thing, all of you who haven't had teenagers yet, just wait. With the a day with the I think on utility tax 103 page, talking about 800,000 for risk management. Is that encompassing all of our areas that we pay out of our own pocket for?
Actually, thank you, Councilmember Kochman. This year, we moved from partial self-insurance to full insurance. The way the insurance works is any of our incidents that happened last year, they have 3 years to come after the city. So we're trying to create a reserve so that if any of those, when we were self-insured, were to come up, we have fund to cover it. And going into insurance company now, where we're paying premium, we want to make sure we have adequate amount to pay premium. So that reserve is intended to make sure, should there be any claim from any incident that happened when we were insuring ourselves, we have reserve to cover that. That is what that is for.
Oh, okay, thank you, Ade. Thank you, Ade. Just one other question, which is on the utility tax for the water sewer. Your estimate, you don't know for sure exactly what that is yet. You're just estimating it to be 1 million per year.
It's 1.2 million that we're trying to have in there.
Is
That's the
that
total.
what they told you it will be?
1.2 total, yes.
Okay, thank you. I'm just
Yep.
curious. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, Council President Honda.
Thank you. So when Councilmember Kochmar rejoined the council this year, she started talking about getting a federal lobbyist so that we could potentially get more money out of Washington, D.C. And I'd still like to be able to do that. But what I would like everyone to think about is that every time we take a grant, there's potentially a cost to that grant. And instead of just accepting grants, we need to really examine those grants and see if we can afford to take the grant, because
The match.
free money is great, but sometimes we can't afford to take that. So it's something we need to be really cautious of, especially going into the next 2 years.
Yes.
Yep. Yeah, agreed. Okay. And Councilmember Moore, did you have another question? Okay. Okay. And seeing no further questions, do we have any citizen comment, Stephanie?
No, Mayor, I don't have anybody.
Okay. Councilmember Tran, do you have a motion?
Yes, sir. I move to close the public hearing.
I'll second
Is there-
that.
Okay, there's been a motion and a second to close the public hearing. I would note that I asked have the agenda reflect that action on this item will take place under the ordinance or first reading a little bit further down. Okay, there's been a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Any further discussion? All right, hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 All right, opposed? All right, matter passed unanimously. Moving on to council business. 7A, Arts Commission appointment. Councilmember Kochmar?
Well, thank you very much, Mayor Farrell. It's my honor to make the motion to appoint Kimberly Bowman as a voting member of the Arts Commission for a term to expire December 31st, 2022. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, there's been a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor of Ms. Bowman?
Aye.
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 Opposed? All right, congratulations, Kimberly Bowman. She has been appointed. Item B, we will take no action as the applicant withdrew. Item C, Parks and Recreation Commission appointment. Councilmember Kochmar.
Okay, I'm up on that one again. Thank you. I move to appoint Michael Camp Smith and George Vadino as voting members of the Parks and Recreation Commission with terms to expire April 30th, 2023. Is there a second?
Second.
I'll second it.
All right, there's been a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye. So, Mayor,
Opposed?
before we move on, there was
Actually,
another
let me-
applicant.
Oh, hold on.
Yeah.
Let me finish conducting the vote. Were there any opposed? Okay, it matters unanimous. Councilmember Kochmar.
Thank you. I just wanted to say that there was another applicant and who was not able to interview this evening, but we do want to hear from that person. And so we would invite him to come back to interview at a future date. Thank you.
Point well taken. Thank you, Councilmember Kochmar. All right, item D, Human Services Commission appointment. Councilmember Kochmar.
Thank you very much, Mayor. I move to appoint Sophia Mayo as an alternate member of the Justice Commission for a term to expire January 31st, 2022.
Second that.
Is there a second?
There's been a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, opposed? All right, passed unanimously. Congratulations. All right, item E, shelter grant opportunity. We'll have a staff presentation from Sarah Bridgeford, our community services manager.
Evening there, Farrell. Council President Honda and members of the council. I'm going to share my screen, so give me just a second. So this evening, I'm going to be talking to you about a shelter grant opportunity that has been moving quite quickly. The policy question before you this evening is, should the City of Federal Way participate in the collaborative application for shelter funding with King County and other jurisdictions? So as a quick overview, the Department of Commerce has released a grant application for shelter funding. Eligible projects are low barrier shelters that are adding capacity and opening in December of 2020. Low barrier shelters are specifically those that have reduced the number of eligibility requirements. For example, services may be offered, well, services are offered, but they're not required for participation in the shelter. Similarly, sobriety is not required, among others. This is a best practice for shelter. Funding will be made available through June 2023, and commitments must be made through that time. So any eligible project would have to have commitments for that entire grant period. Cities with a population of 25,000 or more are eligible to apply independently or as part of a joint application for this funding. In a joint application, in our case, King County would apply for and manage the grant and work with the providers of any funded projects. If the city were to apply independently, we would be eligible to receive up to $455,983. That would be over the course of that roughly 3-year period. And then if we apply as part of the joint application, a total of $569,979 would be attributable to the City of Federal Way. I would note that we have had conversations as staff with Fusion, Catholic Community Services, and a couple other potential local options. Additionally, throughout this process, we've been participating with King County and the other cities, just to ensure that there's the best possibility of expanding shelter locally and in King County. So right now, there is not an immediate project available within the City of Federal Way. While Fusion is coming on board soon, and we're really excited to have the Fusion Family Shelter open, it does not meet the requirements around low barrier shelter. Fusion has made programmatic decisions to ensure that they can be successful as they take on a new program for them. They have not delivered shelter, and this is a big step for the organization. That may change in the future, but right now it didn't seem like a good fit. Additionally, Reach Out is a little bit tenuous as it looks forward to implementing COVID-19 safe practices in their congregate setting. Right now, as they don't have a permanent location, it's really difficult to see a path forward that is safe with COVID-19. We'll continue to work with Catholic Community Services for Reach Out. It is certainly concerning as we look at losing shelter capacity for adults, and that may be part of prioritization for potential projects. While there was an initial goal of having projects selected by July 6th, I think that was in the staff report, the potential projects that are on the table need additional work to determine their feasibility. So we don't have final projects to present either locally or as part of a joint application this evening. I would say that in short, we do not have a feasible project within the City of Federal Way. There are potential projects in South King. There are 2 that would be in at least semi-permanent locations, and then a consideration of a hotel motel voucher program. There are also projects in north and east that look like they'll be feasible and part of any joint application. So with that, we know that it is likely that any funded shelter would be outside of the city of Federal Way. As such, we are asking City Council to consider this opportunity and to make a recommendation on how to proceed. And then the Mayor Farrell will defer to City Council. I would be happy to take any questions that you have.
Okay, Councilmember Sefadazan.
Yeah. Thank you, Sarah. So with this grant, if we were to apply as City of Federal Way, we'll get a lower amount. But with the partnership with King County, I guess, right? Other jurisdiction, it'll be a higher amount, right?
That is correct.
So even though there's not going to be a project, no, the project may be outside of the City of Federal Way. They could still potentially be serving, or they should be serving Federal Way residents or Federal Way participants regardless, correct?
That is correct.
So, okay, let me back up then. There is a deadline, right?
Yes. Did I?
Okay,
and actually,
let's go back to
that. As you're saying that, I don't know if I just skipped over. I somehow deleted a slide. Okay. I thought I was missing something as I was presenting. So the deadline is actually very quick. And if you'll allow me to clarify, and what I'll do is I'll pull this up. The deadline is July 17th. So the materials were made available on June 22nd. And the application closes on July 17th. So that's part of the hurry in this process. Any project, as is true with most shelters, will serve the region as a whole. Most shelters will serve anybody who presents if there's an appropriate opening for that person. It's always preferable that residents have access to shelter in the community that is their own, because they're more likely to have support systems and other services in that community, but that's not always possible. And here, I apologize. I did have a slide. I don't know what happened. I must have accidentally hit delete. And I'll go ahead and, I don't need to share it. All it says is that on June 22nd, the materials were available and it closes on July 17th. We did request an extension with King County, and there has not been a decision on that extension yet.
Okay, so my question then is, if we decide to do it on our own to better serve our Federal Way residents, then what's the capacity like? And then all these nonprofits that are within our city limits will be partners, right? And providing the services, of course. And so can they be part of the application, which makes it then possible for you as staff to get the proposal out, and they do the work, right? I mean, I don't know.
We don't have a site in the City of Federal Way, so we won't, I don't have something to put forward in a grant application.
Okay, even with, you mentioned, why can't I think of it?
Fusion?
Fusion, yes, sorry.
It doesn't apply. Sarah, can you explain?
Okay.
Yes, so Fusion, while they have removed a lot of eligibility requirements, they're not, they don't qualify as a low barrier shelter within the parameters of this grant opportunity.
Okay, low barrier. Yep.
Okay. All right. Then we've got Councilmember Tran.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Sarah. I have a question in regard to the financial impact to the city. If we are going to apply for this grant, and if we got this, how much in terms of financial commitment we have to commit into this project?
There is not a match requirement. So if we had a feasible project and the city were applying, it would be staff time for administering. There may be some provisions that will fund a portion of staff time. If King County, if we participate in a joint application, King County will actually submit the application, and there's no financial commitment on the part of the city for that.
So there's no city match dollar that we have to. Okay, all right, thank you.
No, but I think, you know, the subtext here is that there was a lot of discussion a year and a half ago when we took state money and tried to help homeless mothers and children in the city of Federal Way, and worked with Mary's Place, a renowned, regionally renowned shelter, and that turned into something else. That money didn't get spent for that purpose, and in the coldest February in 100 years, that money didn't get spent when it needed to be. So I say that because I think that's why I'm not going to have a recommendation on this. I'm going to defer to the council. We certainly, I think, when Sarah brought this up and noted that the shelter would be by definition outside the city of Federal Way, I'm going to leave it up to the council. I think there was a lot of unfortunate commentary, even though the multi-service center has been sending people outside this community for literally decades. I think that there's unfortunately, a political component of this about sending people that need services beyond the city of Federal Way, despite the fact of decades of experience doing that. So I'll throw that out there, and I want to make sure that if the council decides to do this, it does have that that immediate past history. Councilmember, does anybody? We've got Councilmember Tran's hand, and then Council President Honda, and Councilmember Baruso. Councilmember Tran.
Mayor, I'm sorry, I forgot to lower my hand. Thank you.
Okay, very good. Okay, Council President Honda.
Thank you. Excuse me. So, Sarah, thanks for the report. So there has been ongoing discussion among the South King County cities anyway about having a shelter that served all of our cities, because none of our cities could actually afford to have a shelter on their own anyway. Is that correct?
That is correct. There is ongoing conversation about having hopefully two, but at least one 24/7 model for single adults that would be within South King County. Currently, we don't have that.
So since we have no location that we could use here in our city, and I believe we absolutely need to provide shelter for our single men and our single women. And it looks like we won't be able to do that this winter because of COVID-19 in our normal way. I would encourage us to go in with the other cities in South King County. It's better to have something than to have nothing. And since this has been a discussion that has been ongoing anyway, because we know that as a city we couldn't afford to have a standalone shelter, I believe that this is the right thing to do. And I would rather see people protected from the weather with a safe place to be than not. And this is a good opportunity for us, and I think we need to go along with this and to work with other cities in South King County and find shelter for our people.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Councilmember Baruso.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, sir, for your report. And I did ask Sarah some questions that were answered for me. Council President Honda, thank you for that, because that's exactly where I was going to comment on what the mayor is talking about. I know this was a little contentious discussion before I got on, but I'm on the same page where with things going on and where people are these days, we need to at least help all those that we can. And to be able to do that, we should be able to say yes to the joint application as much as we can. I know that Sarah answered me about prioritizing our citizens going to different places like various places and stuff like that. So, but that is a proven place, one of the places to go. Again, I just commented again, I believe that we should help. Regionally, it would be best for everyone around, not just also our citizens. I would love to have a place for our citizens to go to, but we don't have one right now. But this is available for us to help everyone, and especially because coming winter time and it's coming up, so it's going to be tough. So I would like to see this money also get requested. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. And that's why we added it to the agenda before this deadline hit. We wanted to make sure you had the opportunity. Councilmember Kochmar and then Councilmember Copang.
Well, thank you, Mayor. You know, the previous funding, the difference between the previous funding opportunity and this funding opportunity is the previous funding opportunity was money requested from the legislature specifically for the 30th district within the confines of the Federal Way community. This one is simply King County, which is certainly, I would absolutely agree to this. But what I think we should do in the future is put aside, it may be over a period of years, capital funds from real estate sales REIT toward the purchase of perhaps an older motel where we can house some of these individuals. We've talked about this in the past on the council, and we've never brought it to fruition, but single men and single women, no children, need a place to stay, and that would be one opportunity talking about for future years. Probably not this year because we won't have the money, but anyway, just wanted to put in my just.
All right. I would note that in the previous instance, it was homeless mothers and children in Federal Way that we were attempting to help. And the only place we could put them was in Mary's place that happened to be in Burien. A very unfortunate circumstance all the way around. Councilmember Copang. Councilmember Copang? Sorry, can't hear. There you go.
This is a regional issue, and having a regional solution, I think, makes a ton of sense. I also think that we have to let the past go. There was a lot of politics involved in this, and it was painful. It was painful for all of us, and it was unfortunate. But I think, quite frankly, one lesson we did learn is that we have a partner like Fusion to help on certain things. We have a partner in multi-service center to help on others. And, we do have 2 shelters, but not all of them can provide the solutions that we need. And looking outside the city, realistically, is something, at least for the time being, we need to do. So I don't see another alternative for us at this point. I do agree with Councilmember Kochmar, that aspirationally looking at doing something like that, what she proposed in the future. But I would remind the council that we have between $15 and $20 million in deferred maintenance that we have to look at for our existing capital structures. So there is a huge backlog of projects that really need to be looked at by the council in the coming years. So before we add more to the capital list, we need to be very careful that we don't overextend ourselves. So anyway, thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, Council President Honda, do you have a motion?
Yes, I do. I move approval of the City of Federal Way participating in a collaborative application with King County for shelter funding.
I'll second that.
Second.
Okay, there's been a motion in multiple seconds. Is there any further discussion?
Yes, I do.
Yes.
Council President Honda.
I would like to thank Sarah very much for her work on this. She's busy enough without having this dropped in her lap and having to work so quickly to come to a solution. or a potential solution. And I appreciate that, what she's done and all that she's doing. But I know that this was additional work at a time when she's really, really busy with COVID-19 and the other issues that we have facing us today. So thank you very much, Sarah.
All right. Thank you. Councilmember Sefadossin, did you
Yeah,
have something to say?
yes, I did. Thank you, Mayor. And thank you, Council President Honda, for that comment. I second it. Thank you, Sarah. One thing we need to recognize is that homelessness type of issues, any human services related issues don't know boundaries. And so for us to look at it from that perspective, like everyone else said, and finding a regional solution is I think the best practice to do this. And also one population that's always impacted is the survivors of domestic violence or people going through domestic violence. And for the most part, they cannot stay in the city that the abuse happens. So we have to also acknowledge and see where sometimes it's necessary to regionalize it so that people could go wherever it's safest for them. And so so for them, I think it's very important that we acknowledge and see the need and do whatever it's necessary, but also if necessary, I think in that package, we should also always consider adding transportation for people who cannot otherwise get to the location, that we have a space or shelter or in this case, yes, shelter, but in any other case where we need services, I think people should be able to get there, and we should consider adding transportation as part of that plan moving forward at any time. And that way we can serve the people who need it the most. And so thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. All right, seeing no further comment. Council President Honda, whether you've already made the motion, it was seconded by multiple individuals. Is there any further discussion? All right, hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? All right, Council, thank you very much for your leadership on this, and thank you for your firm, firm and supportive voice on this. Thank you very much. Item 8, ordinances. First reading, Council Bill 779 of the 2019 and 20 Biennial Budget Adjustment. We've already had the staff report presented during a public hearing on item 6A. Is there any citizen comment? Stephanie?
No, Mayor, we don't have any citizen comment.
Okay, would the city clerk please read the ordinance title?
First reading, Council Bill 779, 2019-2020 Biennial Budget Amendment, an ordinance of the City of Federal Way, Washington, relating to amending the 2019-2020 biennial budget.
All right, and Councilmember Tran, do you have a motion?
Yeah, Mayor, before Councilmember Tran, I just want to state for the record, so that the citizens that are watching from home, that I truly appreciate some of the comments and the questions that the council asked, so that people that are watching from home, they're not able to see those questions, and they probably do not understand the kind of work that both you and the council have done. You know, I appreciate Council President Honda and Councilmember Boruso and the rest of the council for some of the questions that we've done back and forth before now. Sorry.
Great. No, thank you very much. All right, Councilmember Tran.
Thank you, Mayor. I move to forward the proposed ordinance to the July 21st, 2020 council meeting for second reading and enactment.
Is there a second? Been a motion and a second to move this forward to second reading. Is there any discussion? All right, hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? All right, matter passes unanimously. Thank you very much, Council. Aday, thank you very much for your great work. And I also want to say thank you very much to all the members of management team and the managers that were involved in really doing rolling up the sleeves and getting this work done. It's critically important, and I really appreciate it. And it's really is a testament that, you know, in this time in which some budgets by cities are down by millions of dollars, we're able to not only balance our budget as we're required to by law, but also keep the pre-established guidelines for the general fund and for litigation and for risk management and those funds at the preordained surplus levels. So thank you very much. Good work and great work. And thank you, Ade, the magician. Okay, so he's gone from being the professor to the magician these days in the days of COVID. So I don't know how he does it. And you know what? I know we're worried right now about the 21 and 22 budget, but I know this magician is going to take you out, pull a rabbit out of the hat. I have no concerns about our ability to squeeze more out of that and do everything we can. So I think actually the council making the decisions that based on our recommendations to leave score and to impose the uniform utility tax that resulted in that litigation was a big deal. It's those two things together are $3.1 million a year. We'd be having a different conversation had we not done that. Okay, enough said. Item B, first reading, Council Bill, gosh, I need my glasses, you guys. First reading, Council Bill 780, South 320th Street annexation. And we'll have a staff report from Doc Hansen, citizen comment, and then I'll ask the city clerk to read the ordinance title. With that, Doc, the floor is yours. What's up, Doc? Been waiting all night to say that.
Is that right? Thank you, Mayor, Council President Honda, and members of the council. I'm trying to share a screen right now.
If you can't, Doc, I've got it queued up for you.
Can you see that?
Nothing yet, Doc. No, not yet. Let me just go ahead and share it, Doc, and then you can just tell me to advance.
I cannot share.
Okay, I'll just go ahead and do that.
Thank you. First of all, I would like to apologize for entering late to this so that my name was right at the top of this whole group. I can guarantee you that my name was not on the top of television. I was watching on television. I thought I could add when it was near my time to speak. I did not realize that my name was going to be at the top. That won't happen on the 21st. And hopefully I can share this screen.
Just tell me to advance, Doc, when you're ready.
I'm ready. Will I get to share the screen on remote?
I've already shared it for you, Doc, so it should be up on your screen. It should be showing the background slide. So just narrate and then let me know when to move to the next slide.
I'm sorry. Okay. This is something that we've been waiting on for a period of 9 months. The first slide, please. That's just the title of this whole thing. We're talking about the ordinance for the annexation. If you recall, next slide, please. If you'll recall, back in September 26, 2019, the city received a notice of intent to annex by a petition from one party who was in parcel A that owned more than 10% of the value of this, which is required by the state in order to apply for an annexation. Total proposed area for the annexation is 7 parcels totaling 21 acres. Next slide, please. This is a more general, or I mean, a more specific map of the areas that is going to be annexed. You'll notice that it's north of 320th and west of 32nd Avenue South. Next slide, please. Location, as I mentioned, is east of I-5, west and adjacent to 32nd Avenue South, and south of 316th Street. Next slide, please. And next line, please. Applicant submitted the 60% petition on December 20th. Next bullet, City Council held a public hearing, if you'll remember, back on March 17th, 2020, and approved through the resolution to send proposal the boundary line review for review. Next slide, please. Next bullet. The BRB actually held a meeting on the annexation and approved it June 1st. A public hearing was not necessary. And it was passed. It became effective from the BRB on June 1st, and we received a letter on June 6th. The application or the annexation will be complete with the filing of the signed ordinance. Next slide, please. So the options that are available to you tonight are similar to what was before in the resolution. You can approve the ordinance for annexation or deny the ordinance for annexation. The mayor's recommendation is that the ordinance for annexation be approved. Are there any questions?
Council, any questions? No? Okay. Doc, great job. Thank you very much. Do we have any citizen comment?
No, Mayor, we don't have any citizen comment for this one.
No citizen comment? Okay. All right. So no questions. Doc, thank you very much. I do want to say that, well, I'll talk about it when we get done. There's no citizen comment. No questions for Doc. Would the city clerk please read the ordinance title?
Council Bill 780, South 320th Street Annexation, an ordinance of the City of Federal Way, Washington, relating to annexing approximately 21 acres known as the South 320th Street Annexation into the city pursuant to RCW 35A 14.120, assigning zoning and comprehensive plan designations upon annexation, requiring assumption of a proportionate share of the city's indebtedness, and providing for severability of an effective date.
Second.
Okay. Well, actually, that's just the reading of the title.
Right.
Councilor, thank you, though. We'll call on you in just a second, Councilor Moore.
Thank you, Mayor.
Raring to go. Exactly. Okay. Councilor Kopang, do you have the main motion?
I do. I moved forward the proposed ordinance to the July 21st, 2020 council meeting for second reading and enactment.
Mr.
Councilor
Mayor?
Moore?
Yes.
I'll second that.
All right. So that's wisely done and well done. Thank you. Okay. And very competently done. Thank you. Okay. There's been a motion and a very thorough seconding. Is there any discussion? All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 All right. Opposed? All right. Great job, Doc. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. Now we've got item C, the second reading of an enactment of Council Bill 778, establishing the mayor's emergency powers. Would the city clerk please read the ordinance title?
Bill 778, establishing the mayor's emergency powers, an ordinance of the City of Federal Way, Washington, relating to the mayor's emergency powers, adding a new chapter 2.09 to the Federal Way Revised Code, including sections 2.09010, 2.09011, 2.09012, and 2.09013.
Okay. All right. And Council President Honda, do you have a motion?
I move approval of the proposed ordinance.
Second.
All right. There's been a motion and 2 seconds. Thank you very much. Is there any discussion? Okay, hearing no discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 All right, opposed? All right, great, thank you very much. All right, now we're on to council reports. Great job, everyone, with the expeditious working on all that. I do want to say, with regard to the 320th Street annexation, that essentially is going to pave the way for the Pape Kenworth facility and retail sales. They will be moving to that area and consolidating locations from around the South Puget Sound region. It'll bring in many, many thousands of dollars into this, into our coffers, and will be a great benefit to this community. And so we are working right now on the infrastructure to assist that location. By infrastructure, I mean streets and street lights and the like, north of 320th to facilitate that. So it's a big deal. It's a big employer that's coming to town. And that's another, oh, go ahead.
Who's this, Mr. Mayor? I'm sorry to interrupt you.
That's okay. It's Pape Kenworth. You know Kenworth trucks? And these are huge. If you've ever seen these big rigs, when they sell, they're usually north of $100,000. They are big rigs, and the sales location will be now in the city of Federal Way, and that's great. This doesn't happen overnight. I remember 5 years ago going over to that location, maybe 5 or 6 years ago, with Tim. Standing under those BPA wires and talking with folks to try to get this to happen. So it's a big deal. A lot of things had to happen behind the scenes. And I'd like to thank also our community development director who had to work with King County. And I know I'm doing a victory lap on first reading right now, but we still have second reading to go. But there's a lot of work behind the scenes to make this occur. Okay, council reports. Let's start off with Councilmember Asefa Dawson.
Thank you, Mayor. I don't have much to report on. However, I've been working with SCA Black elected officials on the Racial Equity and Justice series. So we've been planning it, and the first one is going to be this Friday. And I'm sure you've all gotten the invitation to this meeting, and hopefully you can attend. It's we're going to be discussing the history and also the history of racial disparities, as well as discrimination and all the different types of historical things that have been going on that has led to where we are today around Black Lives Matter and everything else that has been the journey that we're on right now here in this country. So I think it's going to be very informational, and so I hope to see some of you during that meeting this Friday afternoon. And with that, I end my report. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Caruso.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just thank you, staff, again for another great Zoom meeting that we have. I just want to also thank you, Mayor, for our discussion with myself and Councilmember Asefa Dawson last week. It was a really good discussion. I think that I'm glad to see that you want to implement on some of the things that we talked about, and I'm looking to move forward and working with you and the council on a lot of those issues. The only other two things I have is safety items again, because I know that with the mask, wearing a mask around the county and our state, it's been a little contentious for some folks. But if you look around the country, see what's going on, please put your mask on. But please also be compassionate for folks that do have medical conditions, other conditions. And I think everyone around have seen people get attacked in stores and things like that lately, and it's not something we should be doing to each other, really. Let's just remind folks, if we have to, in a kinder manner. And the only other thing I have is, I don't know what's going on, but whoever is listening and whoever left, drive fast. Lately, I don't know what's going on with the because of the empty streets. It's been COVID, but I've been traveling to back and forth to work sometimes, even on Peck Highway and I-5, and I'm just asking folks to please slow down. You get there and doing 90 in the lane. It's not what is great for anyone. So please just be safe out there. So thank you, Mr. Mayor. That's my report.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you. Okay, Councilmember Tran.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Councilmember Barroso, for mentioning about the mask wearing. I know sometimes it's uncomfortable for some to wear masks or the face covering, but if we all can sacrifice just a little so that we can get this thing under control, so that we can go back to our normal life, it's greatly appreciated. On that subject, by the way, I'm sure you are aware, but today is actually the new order from the governor, basically direct all businesses in Washington to pretty much refuse services to those refuse to wear masks, with some exception, of course. But the LNI will be enforced and monitored for compliance. So that's FYI, so that everybody can be aware. The second thing that I would like to mention is that due to our budget, your local community service office under the umbrella of DSHS will be closed on Mondays, every Mondays in the month of July. Our employees have to take furlough. So Mondays, please don't go to the local office. With that, I end my report. Thank you, Mayor.
Very good. Thank you very much. Councilmember Kopang.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, this is not the first day of the year by a long shot. It is the first day of the second half of the year. And I'm hoping that we can have a better second half. It's certainly been an incredible first half, hasn't it? Just not take a victory lap in any way, but just remind the council and the community of the forward thinking that we and the work that we've done around addressing some of the issues that have come up recently in light of the George Floyd killing. But the work we did with the Violence Prevention Coalition Steering Committee and the recommendations that the council enacted, and the work that we've done in working to find partners from the community to enact those recommendations. That's work that's been done, and while it's not nearly, and it will continue to be a work that needs to be done, at least as a council, we can look at each other and say that we've been trying to respond to these issues proactively. And I think so much of the country right now is in a reactive mode, and there's always going to be reactions that we're going to have to take. But I think as a council, we've done some good work, and I think the community needs to be reminded of that. I think we don't all necessarily talk about the things that we've done, and if people weren't paying attention at that time, they may not know. And I know that there's a lot of people that have a high level of attention right now on what city government is doing. And while we've not arrived and we're not even close, we're heading in a direction. I think we're all leaning into this issue with a great deal of interest in seeing positive outcomes. So I wanted to remind the community of that, and also just remind the council as well that we have work to do, but we've started this process, and there's good work that's been done, and I certainly look forward to good work continuing to be done. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Mark. Okay, Councilmember Kopang. All right, and now Councilmember Moore.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor. Actually, I have no report at this time. Thank you.
Oh my God! Would the city clerk please note that for the record? Was that my outside voice? I want a special watch. I bet you she does that. Okay, so I need to go to Councilmember Kochmar. You're on.
Thank you.
Quickly.
Shocking. Hey, I just want to go back to the discussion on the building a facility for single men and single women that are homeless in our community. The part that the city would finance would be through the REIT funds, but there is money through the state. Believe me, there is money through the state that you can apply for over a succession of years to build up the capital you need to purchase this kind of a building. So I just wanted to remind you of that. I'm going to read this real quick for you. It's about the Kiwanis Salmon Bake. The Salmon Bake is a Federal Way tradition for the last 64 years. This year, it's going to look different, but the Kiwanis Club is committed to serving our community and keeping the tradition going with takeout salmon bake that will help those who are most in need. All of the proceeds that come from the sale of these meals and from the generous support of our sponsors will be going directly to the food bank. Our multi-service centers food bank serves individuals and families throughout the Federal Way School District and has seen an increase of around 500 new families seeking assistance during this current COVID crisis. You can order your meal online. You just simply go to federalwaykiwanis.com, federalwaykiwanis.com. You can order the meal. They're $20 each. You bring them home. You don't eat them. You just drive up to the Still Lake Park and you pick up the meal. And by the way, it's absolutely fantastic. You take the meal home. It's salmon, corn, rolls, probably a dessert. I'm not sure, but it's a fabulous meal. You take it. You can buy more than one and take it back and have a party in your own backyard. So just an idea, but that will go, all of the proceeds from that total amount will go to the Federal Way Food Bank. And this is the 64th annual Kiwanis Salmon Bake. So certainly is changing from what it's been in years past at Still Lake, but they're continuing with the tradition. So thank you. And I hope, by the way, July 24th is the Salmon Bake. It's a Friday. You have to buy your tickets by July 20th. You have to pre-order July 20th so they know, how many to prepare. So
and how much per ticket again?
Coming to Still Lake, $20 per ticket. Go to www.federalwaykiwanis.com. Thank you.
Very good. We'll be there. Okay. All right. Now we're to the council president.
Thank you. So we started our meeting tonight around 4:30, and we interviewed several people on Zoom for city commissions. And I'd like to thank those who took the time to fill out the application and apply, and to those who are serving on our commissions, because the commissions are really important to council. They inform council, they keep us up to speed on what's going on, and I really appreciate those people who take time to volunteer for the city and to make the city a better place. So congratulations to those who were appointed tonight. I look forward to working with you. And we have many more openings for commissions. So if you're interested, you can go to the city's webpage and look at our commissions. We have quite a number of commissions that you could apply for. You can fill out an application online, and the city clerk will let you know when there's an opening on that commission that you're interested in, and set you up with an interview with council. So I encourage you to do that. If you have any questions about the commissions, you can contact any one of us. Many of us started out serving on city commissions, so we would love to see more people apply, because we do have a number of openings. On June 20th, this is a really weird year, right? A lot of the things that we normally do have been canceled due to health concerns, and we can't be close together. We don't want to get each other sick. We want to be a healthier community. But on June 20th, the Lions Club, Federal Way Lions Club, did hold an event. It was the Celebrate Music in Federal Way event. I know the mayor was there. I believe several other council members were there. It was a drive up over at, I always forget the restaurant's name, where they have the peanuts.
Right. No. It's, oh my God. With the peanuts.
Anybody? Yes, anybody? Name of the restaurant?
J Max.
Yes.
Yes, that's right.
It's a game. I always forget the name of that, and it's a great restaurant. But anyway, it was a breakfast, and the club got to keep some money from the donation for the breakfast. And you drove up, you got your breakfast, but you could listen to music. They also had some gift sacks that they gave away, and they had drumsticks and pizza boxes where you could drum on the pizza boxes. And my little grandson really enjoys doing that. And harmonicas. It was great. And this is the second year that they have done this. You know, last year it was in person. It was awesome. The work that has gone into this event and the fact that it had to be changed midway through because of the pandemic is amazing. And I'm very, very thankful that the event went on and that those of us who were able to attend had some kind of a normal activity, because we really want normal activities, just like the salmon bake for the Kiwanis. I was going to talk about it. Thank you for talking about that, Linda. It's a 64th year. It would have been awful to not do the salmon bake. People look forward to it. And I'm hearing people in our community thanking us for doing the salmon bake because it's something people look forward to. You know, we usually sell between 800 and 900 dinners. And we're selling a lot of dinners right now. For $20, you get a restaurant dinner made by great caterers, the Hatchers, amazing salmon. You get to see friends in your community. You don't even have to leave your car if you're not comfortable. And we actually don't want you to leave your car when you're in line to get your food. But the little things, you know, that we do now to connect the community are really, really important. And as the summer goes on, you know, we're only at the beginning of summer. It feels like it's already over. But as the summer goes on, I hope we have more of those normal events that Federal Way is known for, because the community needs these kind of things. So please support the salmon bake. $20 will get you a great dinner. All the proceeds will go to the food bank, and we have a lot of our friends and neighbors who are using the food bank for the first time ever, which must be really, really hard. And we want to make sure that the food bank has the money that they need to provide food for our neighbors and friends. And my last thing is just to be kind to each other. When the pandemic started, I remember how nice people were to each other. They'd offer to go to the store. They'd offer to watch your children. And now it's a little bit different. And I know it's been a long, difficult spring. And I would just encourage people to be kind to one another. If you see someone not wearing a mask, they might have a really good reason not to wear a mask. They might not be medically able to wear a mask. And that's not something that we have to know. They don't have to tell us. So be kind to each other, and we'll get through this together. And we're done before midnight tonight. So it's always a good thing.
And before 10 p.m. So
yes.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Thank you all. It's an honor to serve with you and to serve the great people of this community. I hope you all have a great next couple of weeks, and great meeting tonight. We got a lot accomplished. So thank you very much. We are adjourned.
Thank you, Mayor.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night, everyone. Thank you.
Good night, Lydia.
Good night.
Bye-bye.
Good night.